We've had Aston leading, we've had AMG leading, we've had Ford leading. Did we get the Lamborghini leading? Yes, we did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So a good variety of cars and manufacturers. So the Valkenhorst car out onto a clear circuit. Coming up to 7:30 here. Nobody yet, even with the rather large numbers of yellows and slow zones, 27 code 60 zones around the circuit at the moment. Nobody has stretched it to a 9-lap stint. Bruce Jones, your thoughts then on the first 4.5 hours that we've seen, and then Johnny Palmer will be in the Global Broadcast Centre.
I think I can safely describe the race as manic, helter-skelter from the very, very outset. You always expected that. The standard at the top of the field, the depth of the top-class cars, SP9 we call them, but these are cars of the GT3 nature, and all the top manufacturers here. The threat of rain, it held off for quite a while, but of course the battle is already sorting itself out according to which tyre company tyres are working the best in the changing conditions. We've heard a little flurry of rain, we've got slow zones, we've got tip-top racing. Max Verstappen came in and hunted like Artemis. He was out there chasing and passing, so all the fans that have come to watch this from this might be the first time they've ever seen the Nürburgring 24 Hours. I think we put on a show of colour, of passion, and some fantastic racing. There have been a fair few spills, but having just heard what came through from a quote from Roland Dash, who's obviously raced for decades before handing over to San Sebastian, he sits back, he looks at the size of the crowd, he travels through the crowd, the passion, the newfound fans, but it's the intensity of the racing. Johnny Palmer, as you put your bottom down onto the chair in the commentary booth, it was always going to be flat out from the start, and it's been exactly that.
It's been like that for years, though, hasn't it? And I mean, I know you were remembering the days of it being a touring car affair, but you needed to nurse the cars a little bit through that in order to ensure you were still running 12 hours in to the Nürburgring 24. But the nature of now how a GT3 car is built, it is built to go twice around the clock, and if they don't survive damage, kind of accepting from that, just through the brutal nature of whacking curbs and going closely through traffic, occasionally dropping a wheel or two onto the grass, if you can't then make these cars survive through the 24 hours, then you're not going to win the thing. I mean, it's a pretty obvious statement, but until we started to see quite a lot of GT3 manufacturers come in, and we're north of double figures now, they're all able to kind of elevate one another to say, okay, we need to make this a bit more bulletproof, we need to make this a bit quicker. And that's the great thing about this FIA GT3 category now, is that they're all egging one another on to the next victory.
Yeah, I mean, really, it was the Spa 24 Hours, which was part of the GT World Challenge, that became the preeminent GT3 race. And then people looked across, not very far across the border from Belgium to Germany, and they thought, hey, why don't we go and do this at the top end of the classes in the Nürburgring 24 Hours. They're now both rounds of the Intercontinental GT Challenge, which starts its year in Bathurst in Australia. Then it comes here, then Spa-Francorchamps, then the Suzuka 8 hours, and then following on from that to conclude the season. The final, we've also got to the Indianapolis 8 hours, so plenty. You think about those circuits, and so because of that appeal of racing across all the continents, the number of manufacturers has grown and grown. And when you ride on board, as we are right now with Klaus Bachler in the Falken Motorsport, Schnabel Engineering, Porsche, even a driver with as much experience as he's got, front end of that 911 just washing away, so the track is still greasy. We have had slow zones. There are still many yellow flag points around the circuit, so it is a case of quick, slow at certain points, but these cars just look made for this race. But quarter, not asked for, not given. But what I love is the fact we've got a Ford leading from a Mercedes, from another Mercedes, an Aston Martin, a BMW. That's the very special one. That's the SPX class leader in 5th place overall. The M3 Touring 24H, something very different. And another couple of BMWs in behind, 2 of the Rover Racing ones. Those are the ones with the white and red liveries. Looking at one of them, in fact, Klaus Bachler is tucked in behind in this shot. He's 8th overall, but why are the cars going so slow? Because barrier repairs at Brunchen, where not 1 but 2 of the front-running cars went off. And for Kevin Estre, absolutely a passenger. Uphill approach the corner, just down the inside of a slower car. but suddenly the tail went around, and someone, we've since seen that it was one of the Cup 2 Porsches, left a trail of oil onto an already greasy track. He was a passenger, rear end damage from his 911, and then very soon thereafter, Arjun Maini, bear in mind how strong the Ford Challenge is, that was a gun that was spiked for them. They'll be thinking, thank goodness, at the Hout Racing team that they brought 3 of those Mustangs, but certainly for Arjun Maini, there were body parts everywhere, so a fantastic clean-up affair. But yeah, again, Johnny, and we've covered a lot of Nürburgring Langstrecken Series race, the ability of the crews around this circuit, the course workers, to come in and replace barrier sections. They have great big Unimog type vehicles, and they have course vehicles covering them with lights, so the racing cars coming through, they're not just looking at the wave flags or the warning lights at the edge of the circuit, but the barrier repairs. It's an extremely clever system they use, but they've had plenty of practice over the years, I think we could say. So it's a question of getting the barriers in, getting barriers repaired, and as soon as they are, and the clerk of the course is content that the repairs are done to a sufficient level, we will go full speed racing again. But large sections of the track are run at a bated pace at the moment, I'm afraid.
That's become part and parcel of this event, and it's always astounding to me to just remember how quickly great sections of Armco barrier can be rebuilt around a live racetrack. I mean, yeah, OK, we're going 60 kilometres per hour past the sea, but nevertheless, the race is still continuing on all the bits where we're not working on them. We're not doing infrastructure work, because a great long stretch of the Nordschleife you can still overtake. Slippery surface flag, though, or change of surface flag, is being displayed from that marshal post, as well as the code 60 square, which is the purple flag with the cross through it, and if you look very closely, 60 in a circle. But there are 2 different boards, actually. The 120, which will take you there into a code 60, and then you don't get an alteration of the speed from there, other than seeing a green flag, and that is the time to up the pace like crazy. And we've already seen one car overtake another with more reaction speed. Now, there was a question at the time, just as I was actually heading off for some dinner, as to whether Dennis Olsen got the jump too early versus Christian Krognes. That was a Ford Mustang getting the jump on an Aston Martin to take the race lead. But Dennis Olsen's still leading, so I'm assuming there was no penalty for that.
Nothing I've seen.
I don't think we had an official line from race control that they were even looking at it. I reckon it was Krognes who just was caught napping, and Dennis Olsen was not going to be asked twice in his number 67 Ford Mustang to dart down the outside. And speaking of Dennis, the Norwegian racer, he has come into pit lane after 29 laps.
Just any time while we've still got light rather than just artificial light in the pit lane, it's a chance to check for damage on these cars. One thing I noticed, we had Danny Hungadea in with us, and John said that's really been over the curbs. It's scraped the sidewalls off. That must be out on the Nordschleife. He said, no, some of the curbs, even on the Grand Prix track, you have to get close to them, and they are more severe than you think. We know, we've watched over the years around the Nordschleife, there's some curbs that really are very vicious, but you know, you can ride them in extremis, but they seem to be just riding them and rubbing against them just because the competition is great. They're trying to cut the lap down from 5.4 to 25.3 kilometres by taking the shortest route. It's the natural way to go. Great livery on that number 67 Ford, and it always looks more attractive because your car came in from the lead of the race. Dennis Olsen, really great job there.
There's a problem on this right front, though, isn't there? And look at all the powder, the shrapnel, which is coming from that wheel nut. It's now been... Well, they're offering another wheel gun. The issue was getting the wheel off, or maybe they want to get a different part. No, they are finally coming off, but again, things can get cross-threaded. Normally, the design is that the nut is a softer metal than the spline it's going onto, but still... Imagine how much these cars are jumping around and how much stress laterally through the wheels. These wheels can just become locked on, and many times we've seen, sometimes in other championships, cars having to go into the garage to be worked on, and actually wheels having to be sawn off, you know, sliced down the middle in order for a wheel to actually detach. We're not quite at that stage for the number 67 car, the camo Ford Mustang from the Haupt Racing team. Still got the pony on the side there, but Arjun Maini, now sadly out of the race, but he was joking with me earlier on to say, oh, OK, you're doing the live stream. Good luck in identifying the 67 car.
Oh, you may not be able to see it.
Particularly in the night time, yeah, because it'll blend in with the landscape behind it.
Now, the pit stops are intentionally of a certain length, certain minimum, but I'm going to be very intrigued at the net pit stop for the 67 Ford Mustang to see if they've got further problems with getting those wheels on and off, because it'd be very early in the race, and you know, sometimes it's an incremental gain, but maybe we're just making a story out of something that's not there. But not getting that front right wheel off until the second air gun came along. I hope I'm not producing a problem that's not there, but I would be slightly concerned. And like you, Johnny, I've been in races where they have had to have extremists in terms of removing wheels, but that's not normally when we're, you know, just 4.5 hours into race. That's normally towards the end of a 24-hour. But anyhow, lights ablaze. The number 67 Ford Mustang back out onto the track. It would have dropped down the order a little bit, but everyone's going to a fairly standard pit stop rota at the moment. Some people jumped a little bit earlier because there were sections of the track that were at slow zones, and they thought, well, that means the people out on the track aren't going at full racing speed, so maybe we can sort of ameliorate some of the time we would lose with a pit stop, and dived in maybe, let's say, a lap early. And also everybody has had eyes on the sky to just gauge, you know, is this rain that was forecast between 7 and 9 o'clock coming? Because initially my rubbish weather app was suggesting every single hour of the 24 hours of this race, from 3 o'clock Saturday to 3 o'clock Sunday, would have the potential for rain in those. But in fact, speaking to the teams, even speaking to pilot turned racing driver, or pilot and racing driver, Aidan Mulrady, you know, we thought if you're a pilot, you should have a very, very good weather app. He was a little bit coy, but I certainly think full rain through the night is something we're not now expecting. So it's probably, if I look out the window, it's probably just arriving.
I heard that interview. Aidan clearly did have a very good information source, but he didn't want to spread it to everybody else. And why would you? Because it's another little secret weapon that your opponents may not have. So the fuel's going into the number 1 BMW, but is there potentially a problem there as well? There's an official on the very conventional, almost supermarket type pump, which is being used, and the pipe itself being lifted just so that mechanics can potentially get underneath that want to work on the front of the number 1 BMW M4. So 29 laps completed now for the number 3 Mercedes, which cycles back to the front of the order, and the number 80 car in behind it. So looking very good at this stage for Winward and their 2 AMGs. Winward, known as an American team principally because of Russell Ward's name kind of being above the door, but Winward also prominent in the DTM Championship, principally based in Germany, of course, the ADAC GT Masters as well. So they do have a base not far from Limburg, just up the road, the other side of Koblenz, which is probably an hour's drive or so from here. And you will actually find a lot of the teams are based here at the Nürburgring as well, just down the Dottinger Hoor at a place called Moispat, right next to our favourite petrol station, known as the Tankstelle, and they sell some fabulous models of racing cars there. Choose your year, choose your vintage, and they've no doubt got something in stock that you will like.
Well, I didn't like any of them because you wouldn't let me look at them, because I had to walk through that area.
You told me to steer you in another direction.
Don't
that's
let
why.
me near the books. Oh,
it's bad for your wallet.
Yeah, indeed. Cars of all scales and also prices as well. But right now, no windscreen wipers at the part of the circuit where Maxime Martin's going around. Of course, he's one of the tip-top endurance racers. Spa 24 Hours, of course, is a race that runs in his family. He's won it, his father's won it, his uncle's won it. But he's been with Mercedes for quite a while now. And this is a car, the number 80, it's the other Winward racing car, to the number 3 that Max Verstappen and the gang are driving. This is the one that had to be repaired because we thought lightning had struck twice when we saw Maro Engels slide off the circuit, but that was just yesterday, and that was just how difficult the conditions were, how greasy they were when one of the sort of standout drivers in the series got it wrong, going through just a minor error running through Hatzenbach and one side of the circuit to the other. But these cars are strong things, but you still, if you want to be sure heading into 24-hour race, you don't think, I've just done that corner, I think that's all right, we can get that fixed. It was the whole car that had to be assessed. a bit like the people putting up the new barriers. They can't just go, I think that'll do. They've got to absolutely check every single bolt, and as soon as that we're good to go, we will go again. And then when you get to a green flag being shown, just being anticipated beautifully there, no, red beautifully by Jules Gounod, he immediately goes past another car that was in front of him. Of course, he's got the performance potential that they don't. If you're running in the SP9 class, the top class, you've got the ultimate speed, but you've still got to work your way around. The very short distance after he gets from green, he gets another warning light. A new system of warning lights around the track this year, Johnny. They look very, very clear. I'd be interested to see what they look like in full darkness, because when we had full darkness the other night, it was also bucketing down with rain, so that made it harder to see. But I'm sure they've tested them, and I'm sure it's a great step forward for the drivers and for the rescue crews to make sure everyone's as safe and fully aware of the conditions that come around up ahead of them.
That was actually Jules Gounod putting a lap on Michel Gatting in the Sloth Motorsport Porsche, and we were talking about a history between those two, which I understand actually no longer exists. I'm sure they're still friends, but yeah, we were talking in the past regarding Jules in the Mercedes and Michel Gatting in her Porsche for Mühlner in the 918. Currently, the Dane is second in the Cup 2 division, and it's the 900 Black Falcon team Porsche of Kozlowski who currently leads. Now, what's the gap between first and second in those Cup 2 leaders? It's about half a minute. No, it'll be a bit more than that, actually. I'll wait for them to go through the next sector. But the thing about Cup 2 is, depending on when you're using your drivers within the combination, within the rotation, you can get quite a big gap that opens up first to second and third in Cup 2, but then it all condenses again when the quicker driver may get in to the second or the third place car. And what I love about Cup 2 is, in the final hours, if it's all worked well and it's been calculated by the officials correctly, we'll hopefully still have a couple of Cup 2 cars on the lead lap, and invariably in the same sector as well, which really does keep us guessing in the all Porsche Carrera Cup class.
It really does, but one thing while you were out having your three-course supper, I guess it was 4, was the fact that Max Verstappen had built a lead of 23-24 seconds. And we were saying, you know, you sort of say around this, you can lose that. But we didn't really think too seriously about it. And in one lap, he lost 14 seconds because his car came up in a yellow flag zone behind, of all cars, the little Dacia Logan. They had to sit and wait and wait and wait. And then suddenly, instead of pulling further clear, a huge chunk of time was taken away from him. The car is back in the lead, the number 3 Winward Racing Mercedes. 16 seconds now clear of the other Winward Racing Mercedes, the dark blue one with the golden dragon up its flanks, the car number 80 with Maxime Martin. We were just looking through his windscreen a moment ago. And then Klaus Bachler's a full minute and 6 seconds further back in third place. So for Winward Racing, they've done a very nice job. Another person at the company that's done a very, very nice job is HWA. We're looking at one of their 3 Evos, these fantastic sort of modern-day replicas, if you will, or modern-day iterations of the cars that were just so outstanding. The large, bewinged 190E Mercedes. We had a little historic race yesterday afternoon, 3 hours, and we could see a
little historic race, yeah.
Yes, with 146 cars starting and so on and so forth. But, you know, we had a couple of ex-DTM 190E Mercedes, and they both had a very similar livery, black with silver stripes and swirls on them, but the difference between them and the evolution of those cars from a rather discreet little rear wing to a stonking great version on the latter car with a more powerful engine. And this is the most extreme version, reimagined, and it was enough of a project to bring a lot of people to play. And Renger van der Zande, Dutch racer who spends his time racing with great success in the IMSA Championship, the WeatherTech Championship in the States, desperately wanted to be involved in it because I guess these were the cars that he absolutely adored as a child. And for the German fans who have a lot of strength of history at this most amazing of circuits, a lot of people are here to see this car, these cars, and these alone, and others are here, as we heard from BMW M Sport. A lot have come just to see that M3 Touring 24H, which is an M4 GT3 effectively, but with the body and a million changes on top of it. But something different, but also with a large echo to the past.
And yeah, people kind of understand the project. I mean, in the touring case, the M3 Touring, that was a sort of April Fool gone wrong and needed to be made real.
We have to do it
because so many people thought, oh, that's a great idea, I can't wait. And then BMW turned around and went, well, actually, it was a joke. And then what are we? 12 months on from that, and it's actually here. So fair play to them, but fans around this venue and fans watching wherever you are around the world, we all love cars, and we all like seeing cars that we maybe remember from 30 and 40 years ago in a different guise. Just something unusual. And that's the beauty of this race, is that there is room for all, especially this year, where the cap on cars has been lifted slightly from 150 to now 160.
Yeah, I just want to throw a little number back at you as we extol the virtue of the HWA Evo.R and look at actually one of the star cars of this race. Conrad Motorsport, Pavel Lefterov, young Bulgarian racer, has really stepped up in GT3, but Maxi Paul did a fantastic job in the early stage of the race, but these Lamborghinis just seem so fast in a straight line, and hearing from the other drivers said, wow, I mean, that is really impressive. But what we have seen, they're quite loose around the rest of the circuit. I really do think that Red Bull team Abt and Conrad Motorsport, I'm sure they're in cahoots in trying to work out how to get a Lamborghini to take victory, but they've decided straight line speed along all the way along the Dottinger Her is their scope to make overtaking manoeuvres. They have led the race as well, so you know, it's something different. Again, that's the essence of the race. But then tyre makes Michelin stars, tyres on them. Not everyone's got Michelin, but they do seem to go well in the wet.
They make a very good tyre to the French manufacturer. The other thing I noticed is that there's a bit more aero being ripped off that car, because the outer, or the rear section of the rear left wheel arch was obviously loose. So one of the Conrad mechanics just came in and took it off, just ripped it off, and I don't think it's going to be replaced. So the car will be a little bit lighter because of that, and it may also be way more efficient down the straights. But if they're relying on bits of bodywork like that to provide some downforce, then it may well struggle. And it begs the question, had a Lamborghini arrived at Brunchen when all that oil was down, when they're teetering on the edge anyway, might we have seen the end of one of those cars as well? Because Kevin Estre was thrown off the track by the oil. I assume Arjun Maini went off in the same area.
Exactly so, yeah.
Okay, so
just afterwards.
Just afterwards. I mean, the car was at a very, very weird angle at 90 degrees to the normal direction of travel, and a big, big hit head-on pretty much into the Armco. So I was delighted to see the Indian racer able to walk away from that and be in conversation with the marshals. I'm sure he's gone to the medical centre for a check. Hazard lights flashing on the Dacia Logan, which is potentially an issue. At least it is still moving, though.
Yeah, but the trouble is, it was in a yellow flag zone, so anyone coming up behind this, as it travels more slowly than would be its natural pace, they are being delayed enormously. And bear in mind, we're just saying that Jules Gounon lost 14 seconds of lead in the space of one lap. That was precisely he got stuck in a slow zone in a yellow flag, double waved yellow flag zone behind the Dacia, had to stay there, wanted to overtake and absolutely couldn't, because the rules dictate you cannot pass under yellow.
So Oliver Creaser with potentially an issue in the SP3 turbocharged category. So SP3 is for the lower powered machinery, and the Dacia Logan fits in very smartly there. There are some SP3 non-turbocharged cars as well, including the BMW 318 Ti from Ravenel Motorsport, the 277 car. But Lamborghini number 7 is back into the race, and having had to do a timed pit stop, as everybody must do at the end of generally an 8-lap stint, then it's a 3 minutes and 17 second pit stop that everyone's got to do from timing loop to timing loop. Remember, there's a loop at the start of the pit lane, there's a loop at the end of the pit lane, and it's about the time you spend in pit road between those points. And Stalizzana, Patricia Stalizzana for Conrad Lamborghini, staying at the wheel. Actually, I've just spotted my timing screen's not fully up to date. Was there a driver change in car number 7, Bruce, for the Lamborghini?
My screen is still saying the same. I'm just going to refresh it again, but I think it probably makes sense to give her a double stint now before we get into full darkness. We've heard from various drivers that when you get the changeover, it's better to have one person to take it into the night than having so I guess that is what's happening now. Jules Gounon, clear track ahead of him, no yellow flags for a period, so he's now getting the performance potential wringing the neck of that AMG GT3 Mercedes, and looking, in fact he's coming up around the Dacia, but it is no waved yellow flag, so he can pick his way past. But certainly the light is getting weaker. I haven't seen any windscreen wipers on for a short while, so we'll go with that for now.
Actually, there was a driver change in the Conrad car. I finally managed to get a full refresh in. It's Maxi Paul again who started that car. And he... Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. So
good, that's right. I just wanted to make sure, because we're sitting, dear listener, at either ends of the Global Broadcast Centre.
There's room for cake in the middle, but
there certainly is. Yeah, so, well, no, I think it's in the post.
Okay.
Maybe quite flat as a result.
Yes, exactly. One car I want to talk about is a car that qualified on pole, the number 84 Red Bull Team Abt Lamborghini, and it didn't even get onto the Nordschleife before it had to report dive and find a tiny gap in the traffic and dive into the back entrance of the pit. So it went from starting first of all the GT3 runners in the front of the field to stone last in class, but it did get going with Mirko Bortolotti. Got out of the pits just before the second of the three starting groups got underway, so at least that saved a bit of time. It set by far the fastest lap of the race so far, 8 minutes 11.1 seconds. I think the next closest time to that is in fact I think when Max Verstappen was on board the number 3 Mercedes, that did a lap time that was 2.5 seconds slower. Sure, it's a long lap, but the question to me is, where is Mirko Bortolotti? He's back in the car. It's rotated a bit between the various drivers, but that number 84 Lamborghini, up to 19th place overall, will be due a pit stop probably within the next lap or so. But it's got to gain a lot of time. It's going to be a slow drip, but we know the Lamborghini is quick. We also know the AMG Red Bull Mercedes is very quick. The number 3 car sitting in the pit lane, so it's pit stop time. Sister car is in as well.
As
I tell you it's not. That must be beg your pardon.
They both are in.
They're both in.
You're not
Sorry, my screen hasn't just suddenly refreshed itself. They should be in a different colour if they're in the pit lane, and they will be when my screen refreshes. Glitch. I do apologise. I panicked.
I'm suffering with the same issue, but that's all right. We'll call it as we see it, and usefully, if you're enjoying our coverage in sound and vision, then the scoring tower to the left of your screen says in pit and in pit for cars 3 and 80. We don't really need anything else than the aerial shot either of these fabulous paint schemes. First time I saw these cars actually sitting next to one another in the garage was on Thursday, and the Ravenol Tiger, I think that is. And you remarked that it's a livery that would not be a stranger in the Far East Championships.
Oh, I tell you what, you need to go and look at from my point of view, any car that races in Japan is going to have a livery, but some of the ones that have spread across the GT World Challenge Asia are just truly magnificent. You think, how did you come up with a scheme like that? But as one is flamboyant, another one sort of gets egged on to do similar things. So the Dacia's made it into the pits, and just inspecting why it was coming in so slowly. And if you see the Intercontinental GT Challenge sticker on the bonnet, that's there because they like the car, not because it competes in all the big GT races all around the world. But this has been the backbone, not the backbone, just an integral part of the Nürburgring 24 Hours for a very long time. And it's a far from standard Dacia Logan, but one thing I found really interesting a few weeks ago, I discovered that the very early days of Christopher Haase, the driver who's had so many battles this year thus far with Max Verstappen in the NLS, he started his career 20 years ago in a Dacia one-make series. GT4 followed GT3, the rest is history. But he was rather chuffed that I found that out. He's not trying to keep it secret. It doesn't actually feature on most search engines.
Yeah, indeed, yeah, because you had to be there, and I'm sure you probably were.
Forgotten.
So the 3 Mercedes came in ahead of the number 80. Therefore, the Jules Gounon, and possibly now with a driver change, we'll find out as soon as the car reaches end of pit road. That car will be sent first, followed then by the 80 car of Maxime Martin. And Klaus Bachler in the 44 car was running in 3rd position. They've all now served 4 pit stops, but at different times within each of the stints, by the way. So cars didn't take that long to get off strategy with one another. We had a few pitting after 5 racing laps, the next batch after 6, and then the final batch, the biggest, actually after 7 laps. And then beyond that, to confuse matters even more, it's been 8 laps all the way through, because that is generally the sort of distance you can do on a GT3 full tank of fuel. 8 laps and a just north of 60 minutes, 62, 63, maybe 65 minutes if there's a bit of code 60 out there as well.
Now, it's interesting we're looking at the Dacia, because obviously that's limped in rather slowly, but it's amazing what you can find on various WhatsApp groups and so on, someone said the Dacia's come in to top up its picnic hamper, which is a little bit cruel, and someone else was answered saying the Dacia that Logan Haase drove at the start of his career had about 82 horsepower. Let's go crazy, guys.
82, yeah, well, I mean, there's certainly 6 and 7 times that for some of the cars out there on the racetrack. But the beauty is, you know, we used to have classes that contain things like Renault Clios, and the speed differential between a modern-day GT3 car and something like that in the very small, the SP2 classes, let's say, was deemed in the end to be a little too dangerous, the gaps between those cars, especially at night, because of the closing speeds. But it's fabulous that the Dacia Logan can be in there. As we established earlier on in the race, there's an Opel Corsa running as well for Volker Strajcek, amongst others.
That's with the Bitter body kit. It's a German body kit company that's been putting stuff on cars for a long time. Is rain coming? Well, take a look at a weather map, read it yourself. You can't tell if that's a lake being formed in the Eifel Mountains or just the rivers have overflowed. But anyhow, right now it's dry in the pit lane, and we will take that. Still daylight, but definitely there will be rain at some point. We've had a little smattering so far to make stuff interesting, but with low temperatures, it's just been the coldest of the Nürburgring 24 hours I've covered. I've been coming here for on and off for nigh on 40 years. I lie, I exaggerate. Only 39 years ago did I come here for the first time. But you know, it has made the handling very difficult and different. And oh dear, the Dacia is not using all its horsepower just yet. But it's the low temperatures, and I think that has, and a degree of resurfacing at various places. It's just made things very, very much trickier than normal.
Mattia Drudi now leading the motor race in the 34 Valkenhorst Aston Martin after 31 laps. Jules Gounon did indeed stay on board the Verstappen Racing Mercedes run by Winwood. Listen to the cheer down at the AMG Arena. So the Dacia Logan back in the race, and those fans that are assembled in the grandstand to drivers left for the 300 car, a big old cheer as it went back into the Ravenol S, or the Haug Hook, as it's colloquially called, and Oliver Creaser brought that car in. I'll get you potentially a new driver for that car, unless Ollie just decides to do another big old chunk.
He's still listed as Creaser down in 138th position.
But there is a change in that Fabian Schiller's taken over the 80 Mercedes, which now sits right in front of Conor De Filippi's BMW M3 Touring.
Yeah, well, we've had quite a lot of people doing double stints. And I just said that I think it might have been Danny Juncker saying, when he was sitting in here in the studio, saying it's best to get someone coming through into night, day into night. But it seems to be gradually, I think nightfall is something like 9:15 here. But it will feel a little earlier today because it's a very grey day and we've got low cloud. But I'll tell you, in the previous days, we'd have loved to have cloud that's class as low, as high as it is today, because we've certainly had a lot of rain here over the past 2 days. A little bit of sunshine in between, and hail as well, just for fun.
Yeah, but that means if cars do get just a little bit offline into those thin strips of grass to the left and to the right, there's not normally grip on grass, funnily enough, but there's even less now because most of it's mud. We've had so much rainfall through the course of the days leading up to this 4-day race weekend, with sessions beginning on Thursday morning for qualifying one. Qualifying one was accessible to all 161 cars at that time. Sadly, one car didn't get through Q1 after a big crash involving a stationary car that had already had its moment and was actually briefly on fire. But all blame avoided or averted from the 2 cars that were involved, but sadly it did put one car out on the spot, so we're down to a mere 160 cars now, 160, and 159 that have so far done laps to this point. But we've had some pretty major retirements as well. Early on, Felipe Fernandez-Laza with what appeared to be a fuel pickup or fuel supply problem in his Aston Martin after just 4 laps, and that Valkenhorst Vantage has not been seen again. And there have been some significant crashes as well, not least for Arjun Maini within the last hour at Brunchen, after a Porsche middle-order car spread a load of oil on the track surface, and both Kevin Estre and Arjun Maini, unbeknownst to them, hit that bit of track and skittled off in a major way as far as the Ford Mustang was concerned, hammering the barrier, and that one of 3 HRT Mustangs out on the spot. Caracciolo carousel. The slower cars stay high, the quick cars go low into the old drainage ditch, and that pretty much car width of concrete, which can get treacherous in the rain. But then again, the banking helps you through it. It spits you out the other side, and the two Mercedes that are fresh from the pit lane, together with Conor De Filippi's BMW, are a magnificent sight for those fans gathered in the middle of that tighter than 180-degree bend. And it's just a wonderful place to watch motor racing. It takes quite an effort to get there. Maybe you need to reserve a couple of hours to get a ride out there, but once you do and you walk into the middle of the carousel itself, you are surrounded by race cars, and the sound is glorious, if nothing else.
Yeah, you need to plan your trip around the Nürburgring to get it right. And, you know, much like with the drivers, experience is everything, because you could end up walking and being rewarded, end up walking going to a bit of a cul-de-sac and still waiting for the track to be cleared at Brunchen after those barrier players. Red and yellow stripe flag for slippery surface. Here's the Unimog, whichever vehicle is there with the generator on the back, the arm and new barrier sections. They will probably not be the last barrier sections replaced in this race. I'd rather hope they were. Right, riding on board with Conor De Filippi. Haven't really talked about him too much so far this weekend. Long time BMW Motorsport driver, but he's in the M3 Touring 24H. Yes, an M3 estate car, if you will, but a little more special than that description makes it. But waiting for release right behind the 80 Mercedes, flashing of the lights, and the 80 Winwood Racing Mercedes that just recently has had a pit stop, just sitting up the track ahead of it, but it's escape time. Now, light is fading, track is dry at the moment, temperatures not high. I think that's very much been a feature of this. But at the moment of release, it's like these three SP9 cars have been fired out of a catapult, but taking a twisting course. Can you hear any lifting off the throttle? I can't.
No, because there isn't any, that's why. And through the Stefan Bellof S, past the campsites where the Barbies have been going for at least an hour now, so factor that in as well from a visibility point of view. The smoke from the campsite barbecues will start to filter through the air, and if you've got very high sensitivity in the nose, a lot of drivers do say they can smell the hot dogs and the burgers even whilst they're racing at such close quarters. Now, is there some scope for this second, third and fourth place battle to switch position? The BMW's got a double toe on the two AMGs. There's a little VW Sirocco, the white car as well, which can be used, of course, for a hole being punched in the air, just as long as you factor in the speed difference. And who will be first to pop out? Well, it's Jules Gounon. And then in this 12-wheeled SP9 GT3 car, actually Fabian Schiller jumps to the left-hand side for a better line of sight. Flashing of the lights for Conor De Filippi, the American racer, but there's no way through there. And that was almost a bit of team orders, I felt, because Schiller was given the space by Jules Gounon, and it'll put the Ravenel-backed car into second position.
Yeah, I think the fly in the ointment is definitely Conor De Filippi sitting in behind them, because they could work together and one would tow another and vice versa. But Conor De Filippi absolutely anxious to hang on in that station wagon, touring version, call it what you will, shooting brake. But anyhow, fantastic BMW. It's just going to be approaching the first turn. We've got one of the three HWA Evos. They look magnificent going through with their flamboyant rear wings, but wow, really interesting how Fabian Schiller is rocketing clear. There was a much wider line out of the chicane taken by Jules Gounon. Lights flashing. He wants to get past that HWA. He doesn't want the BMW Touring getting onto his tail. But at this point, these weather conditions, clearly Fabian Schiller's new moustache is working wonders for him as he pulls his way down the hill in the number 80 Winwood Racing Mercedes.
So down the hill, actually that was Fabio Scherer with the tash.
Scherer was it? I
yeah,
beg your pardon. Yes.
But Schiller might be growing one as well. I haven't seen him this weekend. Interesting to see the modern day Mercedes GT3 versus something that's absolutely not a Mercedes, but is kind of modelled on one, the 190E. So that's the HWA car, and HWA is the manufacturer rather than what you might think as the three-pointed star for that brand new Evo. And through the link road, turning left at the end of the Grand Prix track, I just caught a glimpse of Mattia Drudi in his Valkenhorst Motorsport Aston Martin Vantage, the yellow and black car. The gap is 24 seconds, or at least it was at the start of this lap, back to Fabian Schiller in the number 80 Mercedes. But the two running at very close quarters. I noticed there is really quite smart now headlights, smallish headlights that sit within the grille of these Mercedes. I don't think I've seen that before for other GT3 races. It might be an exclusively Nürburgring thing. But on the Fabian Schiller car, one of those inner grille lights is not actually working. So, I mean, that's not a worry as far as the officials are concerned. At Le Mans, if one of your heads, oh, there's a hold up here because two abreast middle order cars. One of them is the development Hyundai N Elantra. So patience a virtue here. But the problem is, if you're Jules Gounon, you're caught between a rock and a hard place because you've got your teammate in front of you at Hoogeiken, and then snarling around the back of this giant rear wing of the second of the Mercedes is Conor De Filippi, who's not going to be asked twice in the big estate car to go through into what would be third position.
Actually, that's the beauty of it. Described as a big estate car, it's pretty much exactly the same scale as the cars in front, but just because it's got the longer bodywork at the back. But actually, he's had a much better run. I think he's... Look, 3 cars. I think that's 1.5 blankets in terms of distance between the front one and the back. You could put it over the top, and now Gounon all over the tail of Fabian Schiller. And even more, the pressure is coming on from De Filippi, looking left, looking right. Also, looking up ahead to see what cars may help him. You always pick off the back markers as well, and hopefully they will hinder the cars in front, and you as the chaser will be able to gain, and maybe they'll just lose momentum enough for you to nip through. But Conor De Filippi, JP, is exactly in the right position to do that if an opportunity arises. The Cayman stays to the right-hand side circuit. No, nothing ventured, nothing gained there.
That whole section of the track they've just done is known as the Foxhole. And hopefully, if you're enjoying our pictures as well as the audio, you understand why, because it's tree-lined, you thunder downhill. It's like something out of Alice in Wonderland. And then you emerge into a clearing at Adenauer Forst, where there is a bit of runoff, but you kind of don't want to go up those curbs that must be about a foot high. So stay contained within the racetrack. They're now at Metzgersfeld, the double left-hander. Crowd up there on the right-hand side. And now we go towards Callenhard. Mercedes, BMW, second, third and fourth.
Yeah, picking off a Toyota Supra. But what you don't gauge, you can see there's a bit of elevation change, but it's much steeper than it looks. Television always flattens the ankles. Now you can see it's starting to drop away markedly. Trying to stay off the curbs a little bit. They can bounce the cars across. What do you see on the right-hand side of the circuit? Waved yellow flag. So where's the incident? They've had 2 warnings. They're coming down double, oh dear, now number 81, double yellow time penalty for 45 seconds for not heeding the yellow flags. These 3 seem to have done just that. No overtaking. They went past the green. They can now pick off the back markers, and one running at a bated pace. One of the Cup, I think that was one of the Cup 2 Porsches, hazard lamps on. We'll see if that continues, but this battle, second, third and fourth, just fantastic. And Conor De Filippi just hanging on. He's actually fallen back by a car length or 2. What did we see on the screen there, Johnny? Windscreen wiper going. Yeah. Just a little dot occasionally. Maybe that's a confidence sweep, but you know, many a time, if it's not fully wet, just don't use your wipers. Don't make it smeary.
The other thing I noticed is that as soon as these cars went through Callenhard was then yellow on the exit, but that didn't involve any of these cars, so did it kick off as soon as they'd gone through?
The bow wave.
It's cleared now, and so has Exmuller as well. But your point about the 99 car, which is the Dries Van Tor Rover Racing BMW M4, is crucial. They're going to have to spend an extra 45 seconds in the pit lane during their next stop, because of, well, not obeying a double yellow waved flag. I think
correct.
I worked that out as,
yeah.
Okay, so a pit stop that should normally be taking them 3 minutes and 17 seconds, you can add 45 seconds onto that, which could and will be massively damaging because it's the 5th place car.
Well, it's also the 4th place car, number 81. We've just seen the message come on the screen. That was also 45 seconds for double yellow offences. So you just think how long it takes you to get back 45 seconds. It's a mountain to climb. But one tiny moment of inattention, or perhaps being slightly unsighted, too close to the car in front, you can pick it up. You hope over the course of the race it averages out, but every single time penalty is going to hurt. You just can't afford to shed 45 seconds. And stay in the hunt, that is.
Well, no. And, yeah, you will find your race unravelling very quickly if you start to stack up those penalties. The good thing about incurring something like that, and we had very early on a 32-second penalty for the number 130 Lamborghini, which at the time was leading. You are still able to do a small amount of work on the car whilst it sits for that extra time in the pit lane, so it's not as if you have to drive into a physical penalty box and serve that extra time and then you go towards the team. These three SB9 cars are not allowed to overtake the white BMW, of course, under yellow flags and under code 60, so they must abide by the speed limit and they must not overtake anybody else, even if it's a lower class runner. It is single file stuff. And then who sees the green earlier than the other? This is all still to do with the ongoing repair work at Brunchen, left side Armco. A lot of that is now brand new, and the truck and trailer that has delivered the new parts, the new slats for the Armco, and possibly actually some of the vertical slats as well, where the horizontal piece is attached to. If they've been compromised, they'll have to be fitted, and sometimes holes need to be drilled in as well. So all of that work does take its time. But then, yeah, sometimes a back marker in front will compromise the first car in a line, and Jules Gounon might well be able to read the situation a little better and get the better of the starts. Although Conor De Filippi of those three seems the most revved up in order to gain places as they pop back into a green racetrack.
Yeah, well, just to reiterate, the number 81 BMW M3 Touring 24H, that's got 45-second penalty coming its way. Not coming its way, it's come its way. It hasn't served it yet. And the car behind it, 5th place, another, well, way back, actually, 45 seconds further back, has also got a 45-second penalty, which is the number 99 Rover Racing BMW M4 GT3. So that is going to smart. It's going to sting like a bad one. Klaus Bachler bottled up behind a Cayman. It's the effort that people make with their outfits. Who decided you needed to look like an extra from a science fiction movie?
They didn't all know they were coming dressed like that, you know.
Yeah,
it's
just
entirely
coincidental.
Yeah.
I can't believe you've got the same outfit.
Well, there's no doubt about the brand that they are supporting, the large M-Power banner on the front of their bar, and there are two BMWs strongly placed, but they're the two penalised cars in 4th and 5th places. Straight line speed between this Beamer and the Mercedes is about the same, although Conor De Filippi is gaining ground. It's inches over several metres, to mix my measurement scales, and then the sparks from both cars as the plank or possibly the titanium plates just ground out briefly. Again, another whip of the windscreen wiper from Fabian Schiller. Despite the switch of the two AMGs, though, for 2nd and 3rd, Schiller's not really been able to get away.
No, I really thought he was going to once he went through, because certainly the 2nd place, those Mercedes with Gounon, was rather slow through the Hauck hook, the sharp left-right combination, but the BMW is still there troubling them. But what I'd love to see is a clear lap, no slow zones, no yellow flag areas, but of course still those barrier repairs go on, because when you see a battle as close as this, 2nd, 3rd and 4th, two Mercedes, the BMW M3 Touring, something very special, at each other's throats, that's what you want. The light is fading, the magnificence of the Nürburgring is all around. It's changing nature as the light falls down, but right now all we have to offer a sucker in terms of this battle is there are three slower cars up ahead as they sweep down to the Goodyear hairpin, and maybe one of those trio will be able to just get past a little better than those behind. Certainly if you're the front car in a group of cars coming on across slower drivers, you generally have the advantage. They can't always see all of you, but they've worked them. In fact, there must be waved yellow because they took a while to get past that BMW. Up the slope they come. Very fast part of the circuit here. However, this is still on the Grand Prix part of the circuit, of course. Suddenly the edges are going to come much, much closer when they get on the Nordschleife. Still, they've got to go into the dip, down to the right-hander at the bottom of the dip, up to the Vidal chicane, and then get themselves into position to turn left and go on to the Nordschleife itself. But it's still nose to tail, 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Fabian Schiller, Jules Gounon and Conor De Filippi. Who's going to blink first? Through
the Falcon Bogen, which is the fastest corner on the Grand Prix circuit, that right-hand king. That's after the Bilstein corner. And newly named, well, last year, the Xiaomi Curve, after the car manufacturer. And Xiaomi do have an interest, I think, in taking part in this race in future years, so that'll be interesting to watch its development. It is attracting more and more manufacturers. I was intrigued to see the potential for an all-electric Volkswagen Polo to join the party in 2027. Volkswagen obviously are here with quite a lot of privately entered cars, but they, as another huge German manufacturer, are being beckoned back to the ring. Mercedes, BMW, still the same order. There's an Audi TT now ahead of them, which is one of the more quicker middle-order cars, and the Audi TT, there's only one of them, is in SP3T, so for turbocharged cars, and it is the 317 car currently leading SP3T in 80th place overall, as now Connor De Filippi jumps to the left, jumps to the right, and Gounon, well, was trying to block him off actually, but you can't make too many moves as being the chased car. They go over the rise, it's Schradenkreuz next, the very fast left-hander, and then on to the brakes for Arenberg as the headlights are ablaze. We're still about an hour away from official sunset. Driving all the way through the night. There's a bit more Xiaomi branding, I notice, on the bridge at Arenberg. Now we go downhill into the foxhole, and the Mercedes, it's got the legs again on the BMW, I would say.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, Jules did just the right number of moves. He couldn't have done any more left and rights in front of the BMW. Touring there, but again, traffic up ahead. They've got stuck behind a Cayman. They've got to choose their moment to go past, and again, punching out of the corners. The Mercedes seem to have more get up and go, but the flow of that M3 Touring 24H BMW is fantastic through the corners. And Connor De Filippi, he's in a massive rush. Riding with him right now. How's he going to read the traffic? Diving down to the inside. Neat, tidy. Jules Gounon actually just has the traffic fall that little bit better for him, so a half-second gain, a moment to breathe for Jules. But at the moment, with Jules Gounon really attacking Fabian Schiller, his teammate, this should be the moment that Fabian's getting away. Jules is doing all the fighting. He's the meat in this sandwich. But actually, literally, by dint of having one better overtaking manoeuvre past the back marker, Jules has finally got a tiny bit of breathing space. What is it between those cars? Half a second? Maybe not even that, but that's more than it has been for quite a few laps.
And the other thing that's happening, and I don't think this is just down to the three cars here, second, third and fourth, battling amongst themselves, but Mattia Drudi opened up another huge advantage at the end of lap 33, and I think he caught some of the yellows a little better than the three chasing cars, i.e. did a yellow flag zone appear after Drudi had gone through it and before the two Winwood Mercedes and the BMW arrived on the scene, because that was a pretty much bob-on 9-minute lap for Mattia Drudi, whereas it was a 9:08 for the second place car, a 9:08 pretty much for the other two. So that's a 7-second gain on one lap for Mattia Drudi for Valkenhorst Motorsport, and he now enjoys a lead of 34 seconds.
That is not because he's suddenly 7 or 9 seconds faster than everyone else. I'm absolutely sure that a yellow zone just presented itself after he went through. So he's, 31 seconds to good. The light is about to disappear to the west, but actually we now have rather lower cloud and darker cloud assembling above the circuit. We're coming up to 20 past 8 in the evening, so the last hour or so of light is going to dwindle quite quickly. But more concern to all the drivers out there is what's going to fall back onto the surface of this circuit. It's been in and out, it's been wet and dry. The one thing it hasn't been all weekend is warm. It's been so difficult for the teams to get any heat in their tyres, and also the other element with rain as it's come in and out, and hail and everything else that's come with it, is it's just so much more tiring for all the not just all the fans who are having a fantastic time in their encampments around the circuit, but I'm really thinking of the race officials, the marshals, the rescue workers, and all the people repairing barriers, because you know what it's like when it's very cold. It just saps your energy.
Also, you can read a temperature on a weather app. We've been talking about those quite a lot, and you can even have a temperature, a barometer in the corner of the ring. But the real feel of a wind, the wind and the rain could just lower the temperature yet more. And 4 degrees Celsius, I think, is the low tonight, but it will feel possibly more like 0 in some of those campsites. And that's the reason why so much food and drink is being consumed, to present or create a fire in the belly. Some overlapping happening there in a code 60, which the officials might have a little look at. Race leader, yes, 34, Mattia Drudi, having to bide his time before he then overtakes the 430 Porsche Cayman. And away now that car will go. I don't think that was the 430 numbered car. Anyway, go on, Bruce, what are you laughing at?
I'm sitting being corrected. Simon Strang, a man with Aston Martin coursing through his veins, he said, I just said it was down to the yellow flags, but no, Matteo Drudi is 7 seconds faster than everyone else. He is the Italian stallion, so keep the humour coming, Simon. But yeah, for now, enjoy that walk on horse number 34, Aston Martin Vantage, leading the race by 31 seconds. Looking at this lap, is he going away? Not any further, so obviously does his final 7-second push later in the lap. But Simon, keep us in touch through the night.
And Drudi is he about a lap apart on strategy from the two Mercedes? Just trying to work out when this stint began for him. Lap 31, I reckon. So we're only a couple into it. You can do 8 on a full tank of fuel, whereas the Mercedes pitted a lap later. So that adds a bit of density to it, or complexity, let's say, to the scrap at the head of the order, because they're not just simply going to be pitting on the same lap every 8 laps. We'll get some cars in marginally before that. And we can't therefore compare like for like until they've both done their equivalent pit stops. We are on that even number actually now of 4 stops for every car, all the way down to 20th position. So a nice place to take a sort of snapshot of where we sit. And definitely a fair leader is Sloth Motorsport.
Well, I mean, it's the yin to the yang, isn't it? The sister car, number 35, out of the race, but 34 leading the race. That went out very early on, the sister car. The last of the light is still here. Actually, you just talked about everybody having done 4 pit stop. Who's done 5? It's the Dynamic GT Porsche. They've done 5. Very soon, I reckon in the next lap or so, Mirko Bortolotti, who had to pit at the end of the opening lap of the race, I would suggest he's probably coming in. That's the car with the fastest lap of the race, 8 minutes, 11.1 seconds. That's very, very close, almost identical to the fastest time in top qualifying 3. So that has the pace, but had the disappointment, a puncture to the left rear corner of that car, the tyre of that car, made it come straight in, didn't even go onto the Nordschleife, had to peel back into the pit. So it's a long, slow fight back, or a long, drawn-out fight back for them, but they are fighting back for the Red Bull Abt team.
Still, these 3 are totally together, but there is another battle to keep our eyes on, which is Nick Yellerly up against Klaus Bachler for 7th and 8th places. And we've mentioned Bachler being caught in a bit of traffic. Actually, his last lap around was a 9 minutes 14, whereas Yellerly either was able to slice his way through the traffic a bit better, or again, the yellows have fallen kindly for the West Midlander from the UK. And the Red Bull Team Abt car, which is also on a bit of a recovery drive from that early penalty, is now down in the 906s, and that is faster than these 3 cars, the 2 Mercedes and the BMW. Nick was a superstar in top qualifying 2, I thought. We really got an impression of what the Lamborghini could do, and then he handed it over to Marco Mappelli.
Yeah, and what we've seen at this meeting, okay, you still have the balance performance adjustments right up until the cars go out to race, but the Lamborghini very, very quick in a straight line. Cars flashing around the circuit, a bizarre shot to suddenly see a bird of prey flapping wings, hovering at the side of the circuit. Which of the drivers is going to pick off next? Hopefully none of them in this battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th. It's still raging. Fabian Schiller, the number 18 Mercedes from Winwood Racing, the sister car, Winwood. Number 3 with Jugonon on board, and Conor De Filippi in the car front that's leading SPX. It's not a regular GT3 car. It sort of is underneath, but with that BMW M3 Touring 24H bodywork on it, it's something different. So it's leading its class, but really for the driver at the wheel, Conor De Filippi, it's about just getting to the head of this race. He's been following these Mercedes for a number of laps now. And really, there's so little between them. And I'm waiting to see the next lap time from our race leader. He did a 9-minute flat. That's Matteo Drudi in the Walk on Horse Motorsport, number 34 Aston Martin Vantage, followed by an 8:58.4, and the cars behind 6 seconds slower. So maybe Simon Stroud from Aston Martin was spot on. The Italian stallion is on a go, and now we're suddenly getting a little bit more rain coming as a flurry. We were told it would come between 7 and 9 o'clock in the evening. It's getting close to, it's 25 past 8 in the evening. But as soon as you get it on the screen of the car, for about 3 or 4 corners, rising a little higher, it drops away again, but it's just an eternal factor. And now a move is coming in from Conor de Phillippi. He's got alongside nearly before Jules Gounon. This time he's got his nose in front and has made the move work.
Gounon had to get out of the throttle, though, because there was no way through in front of him. That was a white BMW having to go through the corner as well. Remember, they're in their own race. They're trying to win their own class. Gounon's route was blocked through Schwedenkreuz. He had a BMW alongside him. He was boxed in, and Gounon had to get off the throttle and then just nip in behind the M3 Touring. And the Touring had a very good run down the foxhole then on Fabian Schiller. So I'm impressed with the speed of this BMW, particularly on its approach to Schwedenkreuz. And now down into the foxhole to the high side goes Conor de Phillippi into second position. That's 2 Mercedes in about the same space of the same corners.
Isn't that extraordinary?
Incredible.
He's hunted them for 5 laps now. That's an awful lot of mileage. That's 25 kilometres times 5, 125 kilometres. And in the space of, what, 20 seconds, he's passed not one, but both of those. Now, can they fight back when we get eventually round to the Dottingher, the long return straight on this circuit? Can they keep him in sight enough so they can sit behind him and maybe get a bigger hole in the air cut by the touring-bodied BMW than you would from an M4 GT3? That extra longer roof does make it sleeker, though. You think what happened in the 1960s at Le Mans when cars like the AC Cobra found they weren't very aerodynamic. They were very, very powerful, but they were getting a massive amount of turbulence down the Mulsanne straight. So they put a bodywork that went to a clam tail, a cut-off tail at the back, and suddenly, great design by Peter Brock, a great designer. He just made these cars so much faster. Ferrari entered a Ferrari bread van, which was a similar element, and all the other little constructors decided they too would make their cars sleeker in a straight line.
I mean, the rear wing off the back of that BMW extends another good couple of feet, and the hooks, the rear wing struts there, enable the airflow to dissipate yet further. I haven't yet seen the diffuser on obviously the rear of that BMW up close, but I bet that's gargantuan as well. It works very, very well through the air. Mattia Drudi, 8.58, as you mentioned last time around. Klaus Bachler has now appeared ahead of Nick Yellerly. So Yellerly, although that lap time was pretty good, I think some of that is the fact that cars are still shuffling back into their right sort of order after recent pit stops. But Conor de Phillippi then lined up the first of the 2 Mercedes coming out of Flugplatz, darted to the outside line. He tried this move at least twice before, and there's the BMW, which had to hug the inside line. Not the Conor de Phillippi BMW, the white BMW, which I haven't yet identified. And then, just a couple of corners later, around the outside on the approach to Adenauer Forst, after a really good run down into the foxhole with Fabian Schiller, realising he's got a heavy car, and perhaps his engineers on the radio going, do you know what, Conor de Phillippi's driving like a man possessed. It might be better to let him by in this phase of the race. Now, what happened a few moments ago at Arenberg for Nick Yellerly, this will explain why Klaus Bachler's got ahead of him. He's suffering majorly with a front left puncture. And also off the road is the 925 Porsche, which runs in Cup 2. And this is the Huber Motorsport entry, which has gone straight on at Xiaomi Curve.
Yeah, there is more rain in the air. There's definitely more rain, and he's just been caught out by that. And Peter Snowden will be coming back into the commentary box shortly. Just popped in, talk about cars being made more aerodynamic for Le Mans. Of course, the Aston Martin project cars in the early 60s, and they're still racing in the historic scene. And then just further contact left and right. The number 17, that's the Dunlop Motorsport Porsche, getting rather too close to a rival car. And it's Nico Menzel at the wheel at the moment, down in 19th place. But certainly that aerodynamic tweak is not going to give it a helping hand at all.
That was John Miller spinning in the Uber Motorsport Porsche, the Cup 2 Pro entry. And Conor de Phillippi's speed briefly alarmed me, because I was concerned that he might have a puncture. But no, he's supposed to be going at 60 kilometres per hour because he's at Brunchen, and he's now into second position then to lead the 2 Winward Racing Mercedes, one of which is the Verstappen racing car, the number 3, which drops to 4th in this phase of the race, and a huge gaggle of cars further back. That's the Mercedes caught in amongst traffic, not able to overtake. Now they can, but they've lost a lot of ground on De Phillippi in that moment.
Yeah, I'd really like to flick back and have a look at that group, but Conor De Filippi not waiting for a second invitation, but wanting clear track. Of course, if it's clear, you can run at full pace unless told otherwise, and it'd be so interesting to have a rear-facing camera to see how he's dropping those two Winward Racing Mercedes up ahead.
The main issue, as I say, was they were in a code 60, unable to overtake a slower running car, and the gap has been opened by Conor De Filippi. That's what you get if you take your chances. So Nick Yellerly suffering a puncture. I think it was a front left. Now, whether that was cause or effect, but I believe the tyre was down anyway and sending him towards the gravel trap at Arenberg. So he's lost easily 20 seconds in the third sector, another 10 seconds in the fairly short sector 4, and Yellerly's having to limp the 130 Red Bull team after Lamborghini in the green and white colours of Schaeffler, as now squirming its way through Hohenrhein is Mattia Drudi, and that gives you an idea of how little grip there is at Hohenrhein as well. So just stopping the car is difficult. There are cars in the background darting in for potentially the change of tyres. One of them is a Huber Motorsport Porsche. I think that had just come off the Nordschleife, so that can't be John Miller. Is he? Oh, now is the leader, Drudi, able to stop down at turn 1? Just about, but he was well off the track because the rain is starting to pour down here, and the Pirelli tyres, they might be a cut slick for Mattia Drudi, but he's going to have to just live with them through this segment of the Grand Prix track, because I don't feel like the rest of the Nordschleife is wet enough to change to full wet tyres. And anyway, he's committed to another 25 kilometres, but that was him catching the white line, catching the red and white curb, and almost burying it in the gravel. That was tippy-toe stuff. And he had to be sure. I know these cars have ABS, they're GT3 cars, so some of the electronic aids, if you like, would have dealt with that. But whereas he will have wanted to stamp on the pedal yet even more, as now running wide is the Schnitzelalm Racing 11 Mercedes, which goes straight on in the hands of J-Mo Hartling, and that's piled into the gravel at Arenberg as well. And the two Mercedes have pitted. I did wonder whether one or two might. So this is early, but clearly they're saying there's too much rain now. We cannot be on these Michelin tyres, the slick ones, and let's get the wets instead. So, and these, remember, can be shorter pit stops because the stints for the two Mercedes, what was that, 3 laps, maybe 4 laps? So it's going to be half the time than normal. If it was a 3-lap stint, they only have to spend 96 seconds or a minute and 36 seconds in the pit lane. 632 Porsche off on the grass. And that is the 82 entry, the Black Falcon car for Sharadin. And how did he end up there? Was there a clash with a fellow runner? No, all on his own. Oh, but then there was a clash, I think, with the Audi TCR car, or what looks like a TCR car. Even if you enter with a TCR car, it can be in all manner of different classes. But Misha Sharudin, sideways across very, very damp grass and now mud. But thankfully, the AT2 car on its Dunlop tyres gets back into the race and immediately heads to the pit lane, which of course that will mean that that lap that he had started will not count. It's effectively deleted because he shortened his lap time by using the backdoor route into pit lane, which you're perfectly able to do. It's just that the lap he'd started, he'll have to start again down to the first corner. So what tyres are these two Mercedes on? I'm going to vote for full wets. Well, there is an intermediate though as well, and what the team will be after is intel from their drivers, Fabian Schiller and Jules Gounon, to say how wet is it, in which bits of the track is it wet, how many kilometres are affected by wet asphalt. But Conor De Filippi thinks the same as well, so he's come into pit lane, and they've got to be wet tyres. What do you reckon, Snowy? I know you're still sorting yourself out, but you know to identify tyres far better than me. That is quite a deep tread.
That's a wet.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I was just doubting myself, so I needed...
On the M3 Touring we're talking about, yes?
Yes. I needed the motor racer viewpoint and opinion.
And they weren't available to you, ask me.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Hey, you've driven in this race, and I have just watched it.
That's a full wet, mate. Yes, 100%, which is what's needed. You mentioned about the first corner there, just getting on that bit of paint and whatever, and white line, and the red and white then. And that's always the jeopardy of that when that changing conditions. They was very, very lucky to encounter that at that part of the circuit where it could go straight on and there's a huge runoff area there, but you will still be having a bit of a moment, and would it pull up square? And the danger is then if it snatches and goes one way or the other, that suddenly something so simple can become a major problem. And we saw it early, didn't we, with Kevin Estre, just a simple rotation at a fairly low speed, where the camber of the circuit should have really helped and it didn't, and it's taken the car out of the race.
Yeah.
White paint, so paint doesn't give you grip, and in the wet it is lethal. It's just like driving on mirror.
Yeah, like glass, mirror, and ice as well. Indeed. Nick Yellerly, minus the front left tyre. There's a carcass left, but otherwise it's on 3 wheels, this Lamborghini. And everyone going through the code 60 is having to be mindful of that. And Nick Yellerly's got to pick a speed to go at that's not going to do too much damage to the Lambo, but it's certainly starting to eat away at that front left wheel arch. And this was the moment, I think, the puncture hit, where he then, as a result, understeered off into Arenberg. The problem had already struck, though, and he is a long, long way from home at this point. So many sectors of the track that he's got to complete, and I would imagine he's still not going to be back to the pit lane for another 5 minutes or so. There was a driver change for the number 3 Mercedes, which was brought in by Jules Gounon and has been handed over to Lucas Auer. He remains in 3rd position, but crucially, he's now on wet weather tyres. Fabian Schiller did not get out of the car, so he's in the 2nd place Ravenol on wet tyres. And has the M3 Touring rejoined the race? That was Conor De Filippi bringing the number 81 car in. That's back in the race as well, still with Conor at the wheel, but that's also on full wet tyres, whereas Mattia Drudi is not on wets. He might be on a cut slick, but that's it. And Drudi, as he proved, no grip at all down at turn number 1. So we're going to find out over the next handful of laps whether Winward Racing collectively have made the right decision. That was definitely not a split strategy. Both cars called in on the same lap and the same rubber bolted on. And actually, Drudi 10 seconds quicker at the end of the previous lap, but I think that's going to switch around now. The pendulum will move in the direction of Mercedes and move in the direction of BMW with their touring car, the Touring 24H. But because Conor De Filippi came in for a fairly quick pit stop following the previous one, that elevates Fred Verviche in the 67 Ford Mustang up to 4th place, and Laurens Vanthoor in the 24 car for Lion Speed now into 5th. But not only do we have cars on different strategies here, we also have them on very different tyres.
Yeah, I just had a close-up from one of our camera crew in the pits that do some great work for us that we can describe to you. The number 1 reigning champion Audi. It's Audi, my apologies, I'm looking at an Audi on the screen at the same time it's going off. The number 1 BMW Rover entry that obviously won last year, hence it carries the number 1. Seem to have a lot of trouble getting fuel into that car. We know they're an ordinary pump, sort of supermarket fuel fill, as we say, but they'd even turned it upside down. So rather than having the pistol grip at the bottom, the trigger was on the top. But before that, it was a real close-up from our cameraman, and fabulous for getting that shot, with a piece of almost tubing or something, not to put fuel in, but trying to almost clean the neck and the aperture down inside the fuel fill, as if there was a blockage into the tank, and it's going in incredibly slowly. So we'll just keep an eye on that. That number 1 car looks like it's having a difficulty at the pump refueling.
Drudy's all over the road here. I don't like this snowy one bit. He's on slick tyres in a very damp part of the racetrack. Hohe Acht, one of the highest places around the whole of the Nordschleife, but the rain is pouring, and where's the grip? How fast can he go? How fast does he need to go? Bearing in mind, out of vision, the 2 Mercedes of Fabian Schiller and Lucas Auer are bearing down on him, applying timing screen pressure, if nothing else. And the BMW of Conor De Filippi will be motoring on as well. The hazards are on, actually, for Mattia Drudy's car. I hope that's not a potential issue. It's maybe actually just to warn everybody else around him, like you would do on the road that we're in a code 60. So just calm things down, everybody. Don't overtake me. I'm not going to overtake you until we all see the green flag on the other side of this.
You said how fast has he got to go? Fast enough just to get it back in one piece. It sounds such an easy statement, and I'm not being trivial or anything about blasé about it, but that is what's needed to get that car back, and it's one of the most difficult things to do, because you've got to feel it, you've got to recalibrate your brain and feel every corner, everything you know has gone out of the window because you're in different conditions but on the wrong tyre. You don't normally do this. But that's one of the parts of the jeopardy of this type of race, let alone on this kind of circuit. You just say, if the heavens open, an early part of the circuit and you're the wrong tyre, you've got an awful lot of tarmac to cover to get it back, and you've got to concentrate. And this is where the top drivers earn their crumbs.
So Drudy just going as quick as he can, but not wanting to push any risk, because we've still got 18 and a half, the best part of 18.5 hours of this race still to go. So we do not want that Aston in the wall at this stage, well, at any stage, frankly, but you've got to survive these early hours. Lamborghini have managed to get 2 of their cars back to pit lane, including the, having said that, has Nick Yellerly appeared? No, he hasn't in the 130, but the 84 Red Bull Apt car did for Mirko Bortolotti, and they've switched that car now to treaded tyres, which they just brought out of some of the heated blankets, so pre-warmed wet weather tyres. As Mattia Drudy has made it safely to the Stefan Beloff S. It's Schwalbenschwanz next, still where it is raining, as the windscreen wiper is being used. 2 wheels on the asphalt, 2 wheels on the concrete. There was a squirm again from the Pirelli shod Valkenhorst Vantage. And what happened with the 2 Mercedes a moment or 2 ago? Well, Lucas Auer got a bit pinched in the second of those cars. He's running third. I'm not sure the driver of the white Porsche necessarily saw Lukey, but he coped with it well. 2 wheels on the grass, but was going at a fairly reduced speed anyway. Well, that can't have been in the code 60. I just wonder whether it was coming into one of the yellows. Anyway, they've survived that, and they are still in second and third positions. But on the home stretch, not to the end of the race, but to the end of this lap for Mattia Drudy, he will be very, very grateful of that.
Well, this side of the circuit, as you said, on the home stretch, and the Dottinger up and through Holreichen and into Tiergarten and out of our commentary box, whilst the light's just starting to fade, Johnny. But there are a few spots on the glass of our commentary box, but also the window's slightly tilted, so it doesn't actually come into it that easily, if you see what I mean, like a vertical window would. But it's relatively, I use the term relatively with a big pause, relatively dry on this side of the circuit. Of course, it goes off into the Eifel Mountains and might be totally different at different parts of the circuit. You might encounter rain, and you can't then say, oh, it's a wet lap, because 3, 4, 5, 7, 10 corners later, it might not be again. And it might change 2 or 3 different times as it goes across the circuit, and that's one of the intrigues of this circuit. On racing this race. It's just, or taking part in this race, it is so variable and so many possibilities. Just when you think you've learnt it, or learnt everything you think you can about it, it'll throw something else at you and thought, ha, gotcha. Yeah.
Well, the modern-day Spa-Francorchamps is a big track. Le Mans, an even bigger track. This is a bonkers track in terms of its footprint. It actually goes from one village to the next village, past a town, past a castle, which I can just see over in the distance, the Nürburg Castle, and then back to the start-finish straight. But you've done 25 kilometres, and you may well have been through several weather systems as you do that. Mattia Drudy, no surprise whatsoever that he pits at the end of a short stint, because he's on the wrong tyres, and he nearly found that out the hard way by overcooking, through no fault of his own, the first corner. And they were completely slick tyres. I was hesitating as to whether they may have been a cut slick, but there wasn't a mark on those. So perfect tyre for a dry track, as the bespectacled Mattia Drudy just takes a moment to gather his thoughts.
I imagine that was a huge sigh of relief, as a PHEW, phew. I said, I got it back. I can sit and relax for a minute. He's staying in that car, as we saw the camera shot in through the window, as Johnny just said, and he's going to stay in the car and be taking it back out again, but on a set of tyres that are actually matched to the road conditions.
I'll correct what I said about Nick Yellerly, because the 130 did indeed get into pit lane. As I say, I'm just dealing with a slightly laggy timing screen here. It was telling me that Nick was still out on the racetrack, but the car carrying the front left puncture for Nick got back in. It was wheeled into the garage because that's not just a case of changing tyres for the 130 Red Bull Team Apt Lambo. They will have to address the damage around the wheel arch of that car as well, and it may have done a bit of damage to the suspension too. The good thing about this shortened stint, though, for Mattia Drudi is that it can be a quicker pit stop, because remember, the pit stop reference time reduces if it's a shorter run that you've just done. I mean, you can pit after just one lap, and if you did, that would be a 56-second pit stop, whereas for the majority of the time, certainly in the dry part of the race, we were doing 8-lap stints, and that's a 3-minute 17-second pit stop, accepting any penalties you may have incurred along the way. And we do know that the 99 Rover Racing BMW of Dan Harper will have to spend 45 extra seconds in pit lane. Some essential fluids being offered to the Conrad Lamborghini in the nose of that car, and that section is being clipped back in. But this again will have been a shorter than normal pit stop for Maximilian Paul. That's the reason why it feels a bit more hurried as Connor De Filippi goes back across the line. BMW Z4 number 40 rejoining the motor race. And Mattia Drudi, is he on the move again now? He's still being shown in the pit lane on one of my screens, the 34 car. Here he comes now. So back into the mix in what is 4th position. Yeah, because Connor's BMW's just gone through. So the race leader reverts back to Fabian Schiller in the number 80 car. Lucas Auer is second in the 3 for the 2 AMGs. Connor De Filippi's BMW M3 Touring is in 3rd, and Mattia Drudi slotting into 4th. I'd say Aston Martin and Valkenhorst Motorsport have dodged a huge bullet there. They've dodged a storm, Snowy, and they're now... I didn't see the pit stop in full, but that's got to be a full wet, I would guess, for the Aston Martin. If it's wet enough, still.
Well, it certainly won't have put a slick back on it, that's for sure.
But there are inters, though.
Exactly, so that's my point. They might not have gone to full wet yet, but there obviously will be info all the way around the circuit, and they're looking at the weather forecast and the graphic coming across. But
Lucas Auer's back to the race lead, by the way. He's just drawn level with Fabian Schiller before Swedenkreuz went round the outside. These two are teammates, and I think Auer rather, got a very good run on the Schiller car, and Schiller wasn't really going to force that because they want to get both of these cars to the finish. I don't know what it's necessarily doing for the Winward engineers to have both cars running on the same bit of track, almost nose to tail, because if one incident happens close to the 3 car, it's potentially going to involve the 80 as well. There's not really much they can do about that at this stage. I'm just surprised they haven't... Well, they couldn't really have split the strategy because they realised both cars were on the wrong tyres, so that's forced them into shadowing one another, matching each other's stride. But I would suggest that maybe later on in the race they'll want to get them pit stopping on slightly different laps. And what happened was Schiller got caught in behind, maybe, was that a Cupra? Difficult to tell at full speed. But anyway, one of the hot hatches, of which there are many in this race. Auer couldn't get on the accelerator anywhere near as quickly. Schiller couldn't get onto the accelerator anywhere near as Lucas Auer, and Auer to the outside line retakes the race lead as the low sun starts to become a bit of a problem on the approach to Arenberg, Snowy.
yeah, it does for a while. Normally it's a little bit of a while there. Nice shot of Mauro Engel filming something going on in the pits there on his phone. I won't say what make it is because different brands are available. I don't know what Mauro's particular preference is, but just that golden hour of the sun now, which can be quite annoying a little bit. One of the more important ones that has a difference for it is the sunrise. That can be a real pain at different parts of the circuit. Certainly on a place like this where you've got so many contours and different elevations, it can really affect you. You mentioned about the 2 cars there, the 2 Mercedes keeping out of each other's way. It's the one absolute sacrosanct golden rule. The big no-no is having any kind of interference in any way, shape or form of your teammate. Not that you would think at the moment that Fabian Schiller feels the same with Lucas Auer in front, because he is unrelentingly sitting behind him, Johnny, and actually flashing his lights as well at Lucas Auer, as he sits behind some traffic now, traffic indicating to the right-hand side to say, I'm going to keep out of your way and give an indication there. And again, that's always a worry. That you mentioned earlier about the, I think it was Matteo Drudi having the hazards on the car. Of course, the road car's based, effectively, so they have to have all these working systems still. The hazard is unlikely to be on unless you've turned them on, but an indicator is still on a stalk, just like the road car, it has to be. And if the thing is, you come behind a car and it indicates to the right, and you're saying, is that your intention? Are you going to stay to the right-hand side of the track? And the driver just caught it going through a right-hand corner and it isn't meeting that at all, and may not even be aware of it. So again, it's something you've got to make a split-second decision on of, do they really mean that, or is it an indicator, or do I not?
I have it on good authority, by the way, i.e. Simon Strang of Aston Martin Racing. Well, they don't exist anymore, do they? But the Aston Martin brand, at least, and Valkenhorst Motorsport, that wasn't a short stint from Matteo Drudi. He had done the 8 laps. So that's even more amazing, the fact that the Italian stallion, as he's known within the team, was able to stay out for an 8th lap, which is what was the ideal from the team. If you can just not disrupt our strategy at all and just get in as we try and keep pace with the 2 Mercedes and the Conor Di Filippi BMW. So he's not only kept it out of the wall, he's done an extra lap, well, not an extra lap, he's continued on the stint with those slick tyres in far from ideal conditions. And now he stays plugged in for a further 8 laps as bits were lying on the floor from Nick Yellerly's Lamborghini, that showing the scars then of the front left puncture that Nick suffered very, very early on in the 35th lap for the British driver. And he did incredibly well to get that car back to the pit lane. I was about to say undamaged. There was some damage, and that's why the team are trying now to repair that as quickly as possible. And the beauty of wheeling it into the garage means that the set number of personnel that are allowed to cross the red line, well, you can forget about that rule once the car is in the garage, because you can use as many people as you wish, as you've brought to the ring. As now, there is a problem for the BMW 3.1i. Now, I reckon this was an outlap for the SP3 race leader. And something's gone bang in a big way, or is that tyre smoke? If the car steers to the left, I fear that's more related to the engine, Snowy.
It looks like it's coming out from underneath, yes, Johnny. I think you're right on that first call. This is the 277. 277
SP3 leader, and now
the Müller Motorsport car going off.
It's certainly right colours for Müller. It's one of the Caymans. Difficult to tell. And the other thing I need to check is whether Müller are here with any Caymans this weekend. They've certainly got entries in Cup 2, which is the Carrera Cup class, and they've also got an SP9 car, which is right now being driven by Alex Brundle, the 1-2-3 car, which is 22nd. But yeah, they do have a Cayman. That might have been the treble 9 car from Müller Motorsport. Off the road into the mud, as back onto the Dottinger Hoor go the Mercedes. Race leader Lucas Auer after 36 laps, leading by a very slim margin over Fabian Schiller. And then the 81 BMW of Conor Di Filippi, but he is 2 minutes back now. Don't forget that they kind of started this stint at the same time, and that was in order to reset the type of tyre that all 3 cars were on. And maybe just a quicker decision being made by the 2 Mercedes engineers to get the cars in. Also, of course, when the weather turns nasty, you need to be in a good position to take advantage of that, i.e. on the Dottinger Hoor and not very far away from pit entry, because if you suddenly realise you're on the wrong tyres and your car's on the Hatzenbach, well, there's nothing you can do about it, and you're not going to see that car, all being well, for another 9 minutes or so. So the Mercedes were definitely in a very good spot. Fabulous, though, the sunset here at the Nürburgring. I have to say, looking at the forecast a couple of days ago, I didn't think we'd get this clear sky. And no doubt you can hear in the background that was a camera shot from one of our many helicopters battering around the Nürburgring, as Conor Di Filippi in the 4th place car, 3rd place car, And also off the road, the former race leader, Mattia Drudi, and that was also at Brunchen. So clearly the rain is coming down very heavily right in front of the Brunchen campsite. Did Klaus Bachler also have a moment? He certainly did. And did he find the fence in the 44 Falcon Motorsport Porsche? Yes. Ouch.
The lightest of kisses, though. I think for Conor de Felipe, it was actually trying to avoid... He got out of the throttle because of a Cayman in front that was having its own little squirrely moment, and he got out of the throttle of that, which then put him into exactly the same position. And they ran wide. So that's 3 cars in quick succession there that have just run wide. And unfortunately, number 44 Falcon has touched that. Now the Audi...
35th position.
Yeah.
So that is the 33 car, and that's stuck in a very awkward place indeed. And now, unfortunately for Michele Di Martino, I don't think he can get on the brakes. Can the Mullner Motorsport Porsche avoid it? Actually, Michele's trying to back it away from the racing line, Snowy.
Very wide. That was Brundle coming through in the Mullner Motorsport car, wasn't it? And as you say, Martino getting the car out of the way, backing it up against the curb on the inside line. This is the number 33 Audi that's in 35th place. And now can't get the thing restarted or stalled, or he's waiting for a bit of gap in traffic. And of course, the visibility out of the side of these cars is non-existent because they're designed to be going forwards.
Yeah.
And we said they've got it's got a very small window and stuff on the side of an R8 anyway. That's its shape. It's just very natural. It hasn't got a big window. You've got a helmet on, full face. You've got a visor. You've got a hands device, and you've got a hands seat as well that works with your hands device. So your peripheral vision isn't a great deal. You don't do a lot of looking left and right because the curbs come up in front of you. So when you're suddenly sideways, like he is on the side of the track there, and was that Mark Bassing, wasn't it? The Hyundai having to go to the left and escape the front of the Audi. Very wise there, because if he'd tried to slow down and turn right, he'd have probably collected the back of the Audi and taken both cars out. So a little dive to the left of... They'll do a little bit of off-roading on this Hyundai. It's fine for the moment. It's not a problem, and it comes back again. Beautiful, beautiful, moody shot of the Schloss at sunset. Look at that, Johnny. Aren't we lucky?
It is tremendous, and if you're not enjoying our coverage in both sound and vision, I know you maybe will be taking us with you via the Radio Show Limited network of channels. Perhaps you're doing a bit of shopping wherever you are. Maybe you're doing a long drive and keeping up to date with this epic race. But whenever you are in a position to consume the visuals as well, you've got to do it, because we have pouring down rain in the foreground and an incredible sunset in the background. And that's an image I don't think I've ever witnessed here at the Nürburgring. Where's the rainbow is the next question, because the pot of gold, we know exactly where that is. It's right here at the ring.
Yeah, 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. But right now they're chasing it. But you cannot believe the images that we're describing to you here. This glorious sunset with golden ribbon down the track. Never mind the silver ribbon of tarmac, the absolute golden hues down the track. But torrential rain, yet we're sitting looking outside of a commentary box going, where is it exactly? Because it's as dry as anything here at the moment where we are, but not for those guys. They will be ruining this, so depending on what tyres on. Now, we mentioned, didn't we, that Mattia Drudi, when he came in the Valkenhorst Aston, that he had slicks on and tippy-toed his way around carefully and got the car back. We thought he didn't go onto full wets, but he might well have gone onto intermediates. Well, with that level of rain, intermediates are not going to disperse a great deal of water for him, or anybody else for that matter.
But it's just even more incredible to know that Mattia Drudi did his 8 laps, so it hasn't disrupted their schedule at all. But the next question, as you say, is are they on the right tyres now? And Mattia Drudi did have to go to the mud at Brunchen because he couldn't stop the car quite in time. Thankfully didn't find the barrier like Klaus Bachler had done in his 44 Falcon Motorsport Porsche, and presumably the Winward Racing Mercedes both got through that section of treacherous track as well. But Conor Di Felipe, we know, had a moment to further delay him, and he's trying to catch up 2 minutes now on the 2 Mercedes. So Drudi completes that lap, and that was a lap with a pit stop in it as well after 13 minutes. So we need a more representative time just to know what sort of speed Mattia Drudi can do. And if he can get beneath a 9.5 minute lap, as magically the whole of the track becomes clear now. So there are no yellow flags, there are no code 60s, and we are clear here at the Nürburgring. 9 o'clock at the 54th edition of the Ravenel 24 Hours of the Nürburgring, and we've hit that spell of the race where we've been kind of building up to this, the massively changeable conditions. But the race began with some contact between two Red Bull liveried cars, the Lamborghini that had started from pole position, a collision from the Mercedes number 3, the Verstappen racing car that began in the hands of Danny Juncadella from the outside of the second row. Look at the green and white Lamborghini, though, that car was eventually done for a jump start. Dan Harper going for a rotation after 3 into 1 was not going to go on the exit of the Goodyear Carer. And then the green and white Lambo that led the race at the time, threading its way between two of the tail enders in Startgruppe 3. So 3 different groups, remember, in this race, all individually waved off at 2-minute intervals. Then, actually, there wasn't contact, this is hours ago now, between Kevin Estre and Maximilian Paul, but Paul kind of been spooked into that overtake, which he then repaid to the Frenchman down the Dottingerhoor in these rapid Lamborghinis. Some of them, most of them, are still in the fight. And then Max Verstappen, during his opening stint, got really close, way too close to the barrier as the car jumped from one side of the road to the other, and he actually used the Armco barrier like a snowbank in the Swedish rally to bounce itself back onto the road, and then he took a place on Christian Engelhardt in the number 7 Lamborghini. A huge off, sadly, for one of the Audi SP9 cars after a tyre let go on that 75-81 entered car, obliterating the nose of the R8 and leaving debris everywhere. And one of the cars to run through that debris almost immediately was the 84 Red Bull Lamborghini. Huge off as well for Thierry Vermeulen in the Realize Kondo Ferrari on the Hatzenbach. He had to go to the high side of a Porsche Cayman from Cup 3. That put him into the barrier, down the grass, and in very similar fashion to Maro Engels off, although the crash, the impact on the nose coming much later down the run. He ended up heavily in the barriers to the left. And Alexander Sims was in the wars as well, because in an effort to try and recover his R8, and this is how it all happened, he made contact with the KCMG Mercedes, which flipped the nose cover across the windscreen, and he would have to gingerly bring this car back, but sadly straight into retirement. A big highlight for many of the fans so far has been the appearance and now the performance of the BMW Touring M3. There is the 4-time world champion from Formula 1. Now back at the ring, having experienced it on virtual racing, but then competing in a 4-hour race last year in a Ferrari, and having done some NLS races in 2026 as well. Off on oil, not his own oil, but Kevin Estre. A big retirement that we can officially say, because that's the money end of the Grello Porsche banging into the barrier as it lost it on oil that you can't really see on the road surface, but with thanks to many of our TV staff here, they discovered precisely which car had spilt its innards, the life fluids of said Porsche. And then the next victim at the very same corner was Arjun Maini, losing the rear of the Mustang. It then gained grip and at virtually 90 degrees, heavily into the barrier, destroying one of the 3 HRT Ford Mustangs. And this, unfortunately, was the culprit, spreading oil down at Brunchen, and Kevin Estre and Arjun Maini, the unwitting victims of that. 2 cars retiring as a result. An epic scrap, a 3-way dice between Jules Gounon's Mercedes, Fabian Schiller's Mercedes, and Connor De Filippi in the BMW M3 Touring. De Filippi managed to pull off 2 overtakes in the space of about 4 corners to the high side of the Red Bull-backed Verstappen Racing Mercedes. He would then pick off the Ravenel car down into the foxhole. And this car's been grabbing headlines for the best part of a year after it was an April Fool in 2025. And BMW have sort of been convinced to actually build the thing eventually. And it's been featuring inside the top 4 over the last hour. Then a really good battle between the 2 Mercedes side by side. They are team cars. And Lucas Auer plugged into these now wet shod cars, getting the jump on Fabian Schiller. We're 10 minutes away from the official sunset time here at the Nürburgring, but the sun is setting, and quite gloriously, Peter Snowden.
Quite absolutely, I've mentioned it already, but yeah, and we're nowhere near quarter distance yet.
I know. You look at the clock and you think, OK, we started at 3, it's 9 o'clock, we've had 6 hours, which in itself is quite an enduro, but we got 3 times that amount still to do. And it's not a very long night here, but it's a longer night than we had 10 months ago, because it's obviously the weekend after Le Mans in June last year. So I've told you the time that is official sunset, which is actually 9:14 this year. What I now need to do is a little search for when we're likely to see the sun on Sunday morning. And remember, even when you do get to sunrise, you then got to get to breakfast time, you've got to get to lunchtime, and you've got to get to 3 o'clock in the afternoon before the race is done. And I sense that there's quite a few more twists and turns, and not just on this lap, to come.
05:42.
So 20 to 6, roughly speaking, in the morning. Yeah, it's not as long a night as we have in Dubai 24 hours every January, and in the Daytona 24 hours every January at the end of that month in Florida. And those two races often compete for the most amount of minutes held in official darkness. The thing about Daytona is it doesn't get properly dark anywhere, really, because that's a heavily floodlit track, whereas here, I mean, were it not for the very high-intensity LED lights that the GT3 cars, but a lot of the middle-order cars don't have those, so it can be very, very tricky, and you're often then blinded by the faster cars that want to get through and very much in a hurry.
It's much what it was like 56 years ago when they first ran this in 1970, with the lumen technology they had at that time. So very different. I appreciate the cars were significantly slower than our current GT spec cars, and they were very much touring cars and even saloon cars. I think the very first race in 1970, the very first 24-hour race in 1970 was won by a BMW 2002 Ti, which is, you know, you look at it now and it's a tiny little two-door car with an 1800cc engine in it. It's quite extraordinary, but everything's of the time. You know, we look at this now, and another 50 years' time, I won't be around. You probably will be, Johnny, because you're so young and handsome, and so it will last forever.
Don't believe a word of it.
But in 50 years' time, you know, we'll be looking at these. What are they going to be like in 50 years' time? I hope this is still running in 50 years' time. I really, really do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hear you, because, you know, there are aspects of this where people kind of have to look twice and go, oh, you know, we avoided a big one there. And in the case of Argentini, unfortunately, we didn't. But health and safety is getting stricter and stricter, as we know, through the years. But this has got to remain kind of sacrosanct.
I still think the greatest measure or barometer of people's understanding of this circuit is that when we had a bit of COVID and stuff 6 years ago, when we had COVID in 6 years ago, and no racing, and this became well known to a whole different audience because of digital racing. In fact, we had DNS, digital and NLS, and people thought it was made for COVID. It was made to keep us interested in whatever, and people genuinely believed it was a graphic. It was a Gran Turismo type circuit and whatever, and being created electronically. And then when they were told, no, it's modelled on a real circuit, people were just like, no, that's really funny. You've got a wicked sense of humour. And you're like, no, it actually exists, and it's been around for 90 plus odd years. And there was like, sorry? And it was just, we're just used to it, we just accept it. But trying to explain it to somebody who's never seen it before, of what it is, how different it is to what everybody understands mostly is, F1. That's what we see on our screen, so people understand 20 cars, hour and a half long race, etc. And then to say what this is on the circuit, the different varieties of cars, the different variety of speeds, 160 cars, 500 drivers. Oh, and by the way, they go for a day.
Yeah.
It's almost like trying to explain golf to somebody who doesn't quite understand it. You have a stick and a ball and a hole hundreds of yards away, and you've got to try and get it in it. What? How does that make any sense?
It's like trying to explain golf to someone who's only ever watched volleyball, for instance, or tiddlywinks. It is a different sport within the same sport, you could say.
If ever you want the best explanation of how golf works or being explained to somebody who doesn't understand it, just go on any platform and watch Robin Williams explaining golf. It is absolutely side-splittingly, eye-wateringly funny.
Not sure Robin Williams ever described how you go racing around the Nordschleife, but I might have liked to have heard that definition as well. Lucas Auer and Fabian Schiller were switched to treaded tyres, wet weather tyres, during their last pit stop, and the rain, by its very nature, is moving around because the wind is still fairly strong. I'm just looking over to the flags that are parallel to the main straight here, and actually we've had stronger wind over the last 3 days or so. So the cloud cover will be moving, but not as rapidly as it was on Friday, where there was a real gust in the air. And that will mean that in the areas that it is raining, that rain's going to stay put to a certain degree. But on the drier parts of the track, they will be getting drier and quickly because of the amount of cars that are creating a narrow at first racing line, but then as more cars, just as Fabian Schiller is doing, go offline, you have to go offline. Oh, there's a big kick from the tail there from Lucas Auer. But yeah, as you're doing some lappery, as these two Mercs are right now, the two AMGs, you have to go into the marbles and onto the wetter parts of the track and just hope there's the necessary grip there. But that was, again, almost another incident at Brunchen, as Lucas Auer was at maybe 30 degrees to his intended direction of travel.
You cannot convey, I've got to try and do it because that's my job, but it is difficult to convey the pressure in that situation. Certainly if you're right up at the front of the field or a class, but if you're at the front of the field there and running with your teammates, that's always another layer of jeopardy that you don't really want to think about too much of. But these cars that are in different classes, we talk about speed differential. They're not slower, they're doing their thing. They're just in a different class, it's a different dynamic. Your job to find gaps that through this traffic where there's one on the right, there's one on the left. Do they stay there? Do you go through and thread the needle through that and be the lead Mercedes in this case with your teammate behind, so you make a Mercedes-sized gap for your teammate to follow, but equally you want to try and eke out a little bit of an advantage, but you've got to make split-second decisions every few seconds for as long as you're in that car, deciding which way the car in front is going to go, whilst you've got your teammate hunting you down behind, and now you're trying to block him in traffic and you can't, but you can if you're a little bit clever with it, and try and not get the side draft as they're doing now. They're coming down the Dottinger Her, I assume, coming up over the rise of it into the kick on the left-hand side. So the tail Mercedes of the two here is on the right-hand side. He's getting a side draft. What that means is he's trying to pull the air off the rear wing of that car in front, which is his teammate, which will then slow him down and pull that air over his car and give it more aerodynamic efficiency. Unable to pull it off on that occasion, sitting directly behind it won't work. You'll just run into the back of the car. As soon as you pull out, the car slows down, so you better be positioned on a right or left rear quarter of that car in front to pull that air over to you and take the advantage. And all these little things you've got to do. At that speed, we're talking, what, 160, 180, 170 miles an hour down there?
Probably.
Whilst chasing your teammate and not making a mistake of running into your teammate, or the one in front hesitating of which way is that car going, and a fraction of lift on the throttle, and all of a sudden you've got your teammate into the back of you. And try explaining that one back at the pit garage.
Arenberg, the scene of another drama as the number 88 Subaru goes off into the gravels. Subaru obviously with a great rallying heritage, but that was not the desired line, you would say, from the WRX.
I'm going to nominate Arenberg for a BAFTA. This race, the amount of coverage it's getting.
That is not a nice noise either. I mean, I know, as I say, it's a car used to the loose stuff, but for Carlo Van Dam, drawing on the four-wheel drive there. Klaus Bachler up against, I think, still Conor De Phillippi. Oh, there was contact, which nerfed the M3 Touring into a sideways moment. Did Conor De Phillippi survive that? He's still, well, I'll do a quick refresh of my screen. Still, he started this lap, Conor De Phillippi, ahead of Klaus Bachler, but Bachler has caught him, and he was only 0.2 of a second off the tail of the American at the start of this lap. I just want to make sure that Conor De Phillippi is still running, and I'm not seeing a yellow flag actually around the racetrack. Oh, and there we go. In fact, the engineer here in the background is Connor's, so he is absolutely still on the straight and narrow. Flansgarten. And now the right-hander, the run towards the Stefan Beloff S. bits of car off on the verge there as well, I noticed, and this is where Max Verstappen earlier in the piece went right up against the Armco barrier to driver's right. The flashing lights, the campsites, the catering areas, always a distraction, but you've got to focus on the road in front and ideally on the car in front. You've only got a handful of seconds to assess, right, which class is this car likely to be in, how fast is it likely to be going, but the flash of the lights means that the Renato Motorsport Cayman goes nice and wide and provides the route through for Connor De Filippi.
We mentioned this in qualifying a couple of days ago, didn't we? On the first day, not top qualifying, but the first day of qualifying, of trying to keep out of the way of other cars. And it's, if you're in a car with a speed differential, i.e. going slower than the faster cars, then you've got your race to do, your time to get, your position to keep, as much right to be on the track as everybody else. You obviously don't want to get in the way of anybody or hinder anybody's progress, and you don't really want the shame of holding up the leaders or causing anything bigger than that. But you equally don't want to jump out of the way and compromise yourself to let the leaders through. And it's, especially when it's like this, and we could see a little bit of a dry line there, you jump, keeping out of the way or just coming out of the throttle and running a bit wide or whatever to let the leader through, or a faster car through, which it has to have its right in the end, but you run onto the slippy bits, and all of a sudden you think you're doing the right thing and being helpful after you, Claude, and all of a sudden you're off in the barriers or got a problem, or at worst damage the car, at best you've lost time. Why do we do it?
Is that a serious question? I mean, you only have to watch 10 minutes of this race to understand why we're doing it.
I mean, driver, why do you want to put yourself in that position?
Oh, I see.
Because it's capital fun.
Yeah. And if and when you win it, that is just awesome. I can only imagine. I just noticed a little bit of a tap for the Valkenhorst Motorsport Aston Martin SP10 car. And I'm trying to work out now who was at the wheel of that. That was a tap with Peter Sander.
Just very quickly, Connor De Filippi in
oh,
the,
he is, yes.
M3 Touring. I think that's quite a short stop, and I think they're switching on to slicks. They are. Connor De Filippi is coming off the wets in the number 81 BMW M3 Touring and is popping it onto slicks. And I need to have a quick look at my analysis, see how many laps he's done, but I don't think that's many laps. I'm going to say 4 or 5 laps, I think, since that car was in being refueled.
It might be as few as 3.
I was going to say, I'd be surprised if it's... Yeah, it'll probably be completely wrong, and he's done 8. But
well, De Filippi came in, I thought, at the same time as the two Mercedes, although they may have been separated by a lap at the time. But yes, BMW M Sport are maybe deciding to switch back and forth to tyres more readily than the Mercedes. Mercedes taking the approach that, well, we've made our decision, let's stay committed to it. We've got the road position as well, still separated by just half a second. But as I say, Fabian Schiller had a side-to-side moment with Peter Sanders. It was actually the Door Motorsport SP10 car. It was an Aston, but with the smaller rear wing, telling me that it was the 169 SRO GT4 entered car. And that runs in the SP10 AM category. For Peter Sander, the current driver, Heiko Hahn, Roland Vashkow and Philippe Charlet. The other thing I wanted to draw your attention to, actually, if you can take your eyes away from the SP9 battle, and there's another moment with a Cayman off the road 952 at Arenberg again. Said Arenberg a lot over the last few laps. That is the Smerlis Racing Porsche 718 Cayman number 952 with driver Kraus at the wheel. So that is Christian Kraus in another 4-driver lineup. They have avoided disaster there. And how did Christian Kraus end up there? From quite some way back, gets to the outer line. There's absolutely no grip whatsoever. And in fairly heavily raked gravel now, and not with a conventional rake, it's been torn up by other racing cars. So those troughs are getting deeper and deeper, and it's done quite a bit of damage to the rear of that car.
Yeah, and also brought an absolute patio load of gravel back onto the track there. So you could go down to your local builders merchants, and that will cost you a fortune, but it's free for everybody to run over on the track there and pick up and have your own moment with.
So this SP10 battle I'm sure our director can't get anywhere close to this, but I just wanted to draw your attention to it because Guilherme de Oliveira, who was leading SP10, this is the fight for what is in other worlds called GT4, the Pro Sport Racing Mercedes AMG, has just been overtaken by the Treble 8 car, and that at the moment is being driven by Philipp Wieskirchen. So 888 to the lead in SP10. De Oliveira drops back to second, but also on the same lap is the 187 FK Performance BMW, the 180 AV Racing by Black Falcon BMW M4, and Jeroen Blekemolen's not that far away, but he's on the same lap. He's about 40 odd seconds back. But I have to say, 6 hours into this 24-hour affair, if you said there were pretty much nose-to-tail SP10 cars, first, second and third, I wouldn't have believed you, even though that is a very, very close category. Just because we've had so much yellow, we've had so many Code 6s, it tends to sort of split a category like that apart. But that is not the case in SP10 today. Fabian Schiller still chasing his teammate in very changeable conditions. And I think you were echoing my thoughts, Snowy, that having the two team cars running at such close quarters, it only takes one incident to potentially affect both of them. And actually, Lucas Auer, with his sideways moment at Brunchen, will have had Fabian Schiller's heart in his mouth, because if the car in front spins, where are you going to go? So I don't think this is by design, but Winward Racing can just find themselves in this situation.
Well, not only Fabian Schiller's heart in his mouth, but your team manager will also just be, please, boys, don't.
Yeah.
Stop.
Play nicely.
Yes. I'm aging more than the time is passing.
Well, this time Schiller's not going to be close enough to pull off an overtake. He said, yeah, he is catching.
But I think you're right, John. It's not enough to make any notable difference. But again, you can't then relax. So I can't relax now, because obviously you might just pop out. But there's nothing to be done on this particular lap. I've noticed a prediction on my system here, Johnny, that we've got predicted 126 laps for the race.
Okay.
Which means there's only 89 laps to go. 37 completed.
We've broken the back of it, I think. No, to use a bit of golf terminology, we're barely on the front nine, let alone the run to home. So Schiller, a much better exit out of Hohenrhein and across the main start-finish straight into AMG Arena, where we don't use most of the corners within that. Instead, it's the Ravenel S, the right, the left. There's really not much space at all there. Well, it feels like there isn't. You could, if you tried hard enough, get cars about 5 abreast, actually, snaking their way through. But you do need a lot of understanding. Yeah,
teammates cat and mouse going on here, Johnny. If you look at Fabian Schiller, he went into turn 1 there. He's having a position the car down the inside. He's not going to make any effort to go down the inside at all. But what he is going to do is place his car in the offside mirror of Lucas Auer right in front of him, just to say, I'm here, this is where I am. If you notice then, he turns sharper right as he goes through turn 2, he moves to the other side. He's not positioning, he's not trying to hunt him down, he's just basically putting his car in the mirrors and trying to distract him and just say, I'm here, I'm still here, we might be teammates, I'm not going to run into you, but you're not going to run away either. You can't just disappear off. I am a racing driver and I do want to be in front of you. You know, I'm watching you, yeah, and you better be watching me, which means if you're watching me, you're not watching the road. And this is what we often say, we use a phrase quite a lot in motorsport, that the car behind pushed the driver in front into a mistake. Not physically, it's a non-contact sport, it does happen, unfortunately, occasionally, but you don't physically push the car into a mistake, you push them mentally into a mistake, you can distract them and put them off, and just basically you get inside the head and scratch around a bit and just be an irritant. So you just go back to being a teenage boy, really. Yeah, sowing the seed of doubt. But it also means it's actually quite a good visual reference point for Luki Auer. He knows where Schiller is at most points. And will have faith in his teammate. I'm sure that he's not going to do anything stupid, but he can just glance down in the mirror and say, all right, yeah, there you are. I'm not shaking you. 0.7 of a second is the gap at the start
of the lap. How's Mattia Drudi doing? He's posting pretty much identical lap time. Check that out. 9:27.2 from the race leader, 9:27.3 from the second place car, 9:27.2 from the third place car. Just incredible consistency from two different front engine machines. Then you've got the 2:19.1 from Dan Harper, who's now only 3 and a bit seconds off the tail of Mattia Drudi. And he might have a bit of a fight on his hands now, as the Irishman is starting to close in. The Ulsterman, who has spent a long time in his still fairly early career living at this place, putting laps in at this place after signing a deal with BMW, much like Neil Verhagen and Max Hesser have done through the years as well. Lawrence Vanthoor pits in the number 24 Lion Speed Porsche, and that car due for a new set of tyres and some fuel, crucially, as well. But Snowy and I are pretty sure that the pit stop for Conor De Filippi was an early one to get that car off the full wet and onto an intermediate, quite possibly, whereas the Mercedes are still pounding around, separated by 0.2 of a second at the start of this lap. Now Dan Harper is truly with Mattia Drudi, so we might even get an overtake on the Grand Prix circuit for the chasing Rover Racing BMW.
And just remember, Johnny, that Dan Harper was turned around on the very first lap of this start. He was obviously in Group 1 and dropped right to the back of the SB9 start group, completely not where he wanted to be at all. And I think, as you said, it was a 3-into-1 where there was a car on the inside moved across a little bit. The car next to Dan moved across, and it just that domino effect, and it just popped Dan Harper around at the beginning of the first lap, which is not ideal at the start of a 24-hour race, but just goes to prove that you get your head down. Patience, 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 and look at him, he's now in 4th place, challenging for 3rd overall.
The other thing that I just spotted that is under investigation is the contact between Klaus Bachler and Conor De Filippi in their 44 Falcon Motorsport Porsche and 81 BMW Touring. I do remember describing that at the time, so there was definitely a collision, and now that is under investigation to potentially apportion blame and assess a penalty. That is just a message, an initial under investigation message from race control, and there are a couple as well that are being looked at for potentially exceeding the 60 kilometers per hour in a code 60, one of which is the number 19 car. Oh, is it a 19 car? It says 19 plus. Yes, it is the 19 car of currently Tom Coronel in his Max Cruiser Racing Audi, which runs in AT1, John Hindhaugh.
I've got some news for you on tyres as Max Martin joins us, so Johnny and I'll swap over in a second. The number 81 BMW M3 Touring did go back to slicks, and as did the number 11 Mercedes AMG GT3 and the 786 Lamborghini Huracan. The team have announced now that the damage to the rear of the car caused by the accident at Breitscheid is going to take too long to repair, and so they have retired that car from the...
Yeah, so the 44 Porsche, which is now going to rejoin for Klaus Bachler, or at least Klaus brought it in, and that car heading back into the race still in the hands of Klaus Bachler, pitting from 3rd position. And Dan Harper, was that Dan Harper's BMW? It could very well easily have been the number 1 car with, well, may well be Sheldon van der Linde at the wheel of that now, because Dan Harper was getting
Dan Harper's
close.
in the 99 car.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Farfus is the number 1 car.
Yeah, but I was intrigued by that BMW going through the first of the corners, the Ravenol S, because, as I've mentioned, Dan was getting close to the 3rd place car, which was Mattia Drudi, and was only 0.3 of a second off the back of Drudi's Aston Martin. I still haven't been able to describe that battle to you, unfortunately, but it's threatening to change at any moment.
It certainly is. So it's Winward 1 and 2 at the moment, with Lucas out and Fabian Schiller having this wonderful battle in there Red Bull livered AMG GT3s right out at the front there. It is 2.15 seconds between them. The last laps they did, as Johnny just pointed out a few minutes ago, Lucas Auert did a 9 minutes 16.6, and Fabian Schiller did a 9 minutes 16.1. So a tenth quicker. It was not a great deal in it at all. 5 tenths quicker. Matthias Drudy it is that's in third place in the Valkenhorst Motorsport Aston Martin. Dan Harper, who just mentioned, who was turned around at the beginning of the first lap on the halfway down the hill in the Rover Racing BMW M4 GT3 Evo. And we then have Bas Backler in the number 44 Falcon Motorsports Porsche. And one of my favourites, and I think of many fans of this race, is the number 81 Jens Klingman in the BMW M Sport M3 Touring 24-hour, the touring car, so an M3 with M4 running gear in it, and what started, as Johnny just said a few moments ago, as an April Fool's joke just 12 months ago, and in the end they built it.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. I promised you Max Martin, he's here.
How are you?
I am very well. How are you?
I'm good.
Are you enjoying yourself yet?
Yeah. Now that I'm out of the car, I'm enjoying.
Never said a racing driver. Now I'm out of the car.
No, you were loving that.
No,
it was tough though. I mean,
yeah, it's really difficult
odd conditions this year.
Very difficult conditions when you're on slick tires. With some tracks, some part of the tracks where it's wet, some dry, some a bit more wet, some it's very tricky, to be honest, to stay on track. But yeah, I mean, at the end it's a very long race, and a lot of things can still happened already, and we try to focus to stay on track and try to survive.
I was just going to ask you, we were talking a few minutes ago, and it's perfect you've come into the booth now, and thank you, because you get an insight, because you're out in this race and doing it. We were talking about what goes through a driver's mind. We watch it and we talk about it. When you're you drive on a track in certain conditions with the right tyre, and then those conditions change and you're on completely the wrong tyre. And we watched Matthias Drudy having to bring the Aston back, tippy-toe it round, and we're all watching it bring it back, because we want the car to finish, obviously, irrespective of its place. What do you do? What happens when you're out there driving and all of a sudden you're on slicks, and somewhere like here you get a hailstorm, or it's suddenly into? What do you do?
Yeah, that's the difficult part. It's like you really, it's easy to take it very, very easy and then to lose a lot of time. But then it's super easy to try not to lose time and just lose a car. So it's to be honest, it's you just have to go a bit on the feeling, trying to see even slower cars, when you catch slower cars, see how they react, if there is grip, no grip, and try to adapt as much as you can. But yeah, in these conditions, it's more like rally than
we were talking about that earlier on. I expect the front tyres to be problematic around here, particularly at the end of the lap. You've come down the Dottinger Hall, they've cooled down, getting through Tegarten at the very, very end. I can see through the screens, trying to find some grip. But even some of the straighter stretches, seems like the back tyres weren't even holding, the rears weren't even holding any kind of heat on it, and it was, listening to the throttle application, it was really, really...
But what is very difficult to understand or to see when you're from the outside is that when you're with slick tires and you come to a full wet track, it's literally like you're going on ice.
Yeah.
So you have basically nearly 80% out of control. So you really try to, with this 20% left, to try to minimize the loss.
What you can't see is Maxime Martin, who's in the booth with the AMG Mercedes driver. He is showing us with his fingertips and thumb as if he had it on the steering wheel, and feeling it with the lightest of touch.
And that's what is very difficult. It's like, because you're like on ice, you don't control everything, and that's where it's very easy to lose it. It's very easy to crash, and you try to survive, but sometimes it's out of your control. So that makes it very difficult.
This generation of cars have ABS and traction control, which is very different settings. In those conditions, would you adjust that to your advantage so that you can hopefully go a bit quicker and let the car do a bit more work for you? Or are you more like-minded to leave it where you know the car is and go on, as you said, the driver feel? What's the preference?
Especially TC, you try to have more TC helping you to understand a bit more, and that the TC helps you, especially with the rear tires, to get out of the corners without having big slides and big moments. ABS, you don't really change so much.
You don't want to go drifting then?
No, because yeah, you try to drift, but you try to find the fine line. But ABS is something you can't really change so much because there's no ABS done for slicks on wet. So at the end, you just try to survive. What is very difficult, I mean, ABS is helping a lot because at the end, when you brake, you're in the ABS, it saves you compared to if you would...
It's Arenberg again with that BAFTA award nomination from Peter Snowden earlier on, and it's the 48th position car. Was that the number 48 car in there? The 176 is in trouble, which is the Pro Sport Racing Mercedes AMG, and that is the leader in SP10. That was the battle that Johnny was talking about. And in second place in SP10 is the Hoffa Racing by Bonk BMW. And has that gone by? We haven't seen it go by yet because that's a Porsche Class 4 that Cup 4 rather, that is involved.
Yeah, it's the 176 Mercedes GT4 that's lost it on the way.
Yeah, that's the leader.
But taken out the Porsche.
Yeah,
he's lost it down the inside. Yeah. Just wiped the other one out. So the Porsche is an entirely innocent victim, and the Mercedes driver won't be very happy about that either because you don't want to take anybody else out. No. It's not ideally.
No,
you don't want to do that.
No, and he tried to pass, but then again, maybe a wet patch, maybe more wet than expected, and then you start to lose control.
More fingertips.
More fingertips.
Yeah, it's difficult.
I was watching earlier on one of the onboards, and I never did a lot of karting years ago, but I did a little bit of karting. And as I was watching the guys, I was sort of doing that with my backside like you would have done. You can't say what I'm doing. You sort of move your backside across to kick the cart out to try and get some movement and some rotation. Yeah. And it's like, oh my goodness, it's unbelievable. Why is Arenberg being such a hot spot this year, an action area? I've never seen so many incidents at Arenberg.
But Schwegenkreuz, so the left before is a very high-speed corner. So
has that been resurfaced this year?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Right.
But you come with a lot of speed. For us, it's GT3. In the dry, you're around 260, and then you have a big braking zone. And if, for any reason, it starts drizzling, it comes from there, you brake, coming from 260, you're on slicks, it's a bit wet, it's super easy to lose it, to be honest. So.
I love how you just say that so casually. Coming from 260,
it's so easy to lose it.
260 kilometres miles an hour is beyond most people's understanding of driving a car full stop. Let alone we're going into a slow corner, so it's quite a heavy brake zone. So you make it sound like it's just a driving to the shops to get your paper or your milk. Yeah.
160 miles an hour on slicks in the wet, coming over the top of the brow into a blind corner. Piece of cake, eh?
No,
all on fingertips.
That's why something's going to
happen. That's why you guys get the big bucks, mate, I tell you. Because you and I have known each other for quite a long time. Yeah. You know how much respect I have for you guys when I watch you race all over the world. It's grown even more this week watching what you've had. And I've been coming here since 2007 to talk about this race. I've never seen conditions that have been so... I've seen conditions where we've had half an hour, 2 hours race stopped sometimes. But the constant changing of the conditions.
Exactly, that's very difficult. Because if it's now fully rain and we all go with wet tires, it's a difficult for sure. But at the end, it's also... we know the track in the way. We know the track. Here, you never know what you get. You come to a corner, it's wet. You come to another corner, it's dry, and it makes it very intense and very difficult. On top with 160 cars, so on top of that you have all the traffic in the middle.
And so many in the top class that are the quick SP9s. What was it? 41
cars. Yeah. So it's incredible, to be honest.
Really is. We're into the pit stops. By the way, the BMW M3 Touring did do an 8-lap stint, so it wasn't a lap early.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the first thing I checked when I came back in.
Okay.
We've got
Filippi when he changed from the wets to the slicks.
Yes, but he did manage an 8-lap stint in that number 81
So we are
car.
We are still in on the wets. This is not.
Hang on, that one's not up to date.
That's a long time.
I have just come in from the other room, so I need to reset everything and reload so that I've got all the strategy screens.
We are still out.
5 stops from your guys. And then the
6 stops.
6 stops, sorry, yes. Down for these
So
guys.
we are still on wets.
Yeah. But it's greasy, so how much do you lose then when on the dry bits as to how much field you gain back on the wetter bits or the more greasy bits?
Yeah, it's always if you have to if the difference is not huge with slick tires, because we have some cars now on slicks which are doing maybe 10 seconds quicker, maybe a bit more now, but to make a pit stop, one more pit stop, it's also like a lot of time. And so if
you want to keep doing those 8-lap stints.
If you are now it's drying and it looks like the dry tires are quicker, but we are coming to the end of our stint, so it's better to just extend and not having one more stop potentially.
Arenberg with that GT4 machine.
A little bit of gravel
track there. Look, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you were playing golf in there, you'd need a sand wedge to get out of it, wouldn't you? And that's on the track. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a race circuit quite that covered for so long. That's extraordinary. The amount brought back on there.
Right, we've got a pit stop for the leader. In fact, the top 2 are in the pits, the 2 cars that share the same garage.
We are changing driver on our car. Luca Stolz is going in now.
Yeah.
But Lucas Auer is staying in the number 3.
And will he stay in the number 3, Lucas Auer?
Because we changed. They changed with Jules and Luca Auer when Fabi Schiller stayed in the car. So that's why we are a bit offset in terms of driver changes.
So you're right. They were still on the. Now they would look like full wets, not even cut slicks to me, not even inters.
No. It's inters.
But that was an inter. That's a pretty extreme inter.
Yeah, we don't really have inters, so they call it inter. But
Fabi Schiller out on the circuit.
They got passed.
Yeah, that was
the replay, I think.
Yes, you're quite correct.
He got passed by the Porsche, which must be on slicks, and he just let him go.
Yeah, which that's not the battle you're fighting right now.
Exactly.
How important though is it to keep to that 8-lap stint, Max?
It's difficult to know now. For sure, the less stops you do, at some point, it's always better in a way. But the race can change depending on the conditions. We might have more of these shorter stints. So as long as you can stay in these 8-lap stints, I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
But again, you need to be on more or less the right tire at the right point. Otherwise, it makes no real sense to stay.
Something I picked up whilst I was having dinner, actually, the BMW M240i Racing Cup had one of their drivers disqualified for multiple penalties, and in fact the driver had their ring permit suspended immediately, so they're now down to 2 drivers.
2 drivers?
Yeah, wow. for the rest of the race. People will, because of Max being here, there are a lot of people who are watching this race for the first time, and also it's pouring down at Indianapolis. So hello, Dario Franchitti, hello to Ryan Marine, hello to everybody who I know is tuned in at Indianapolis, all our friends over there. Now they'll know about this, but there's an awful lot of people, Maxime Martin, who's the other voice here with Peter Snowden and me, John Hindhaugh. This place, you have to earn your place here, and every year you have to get your permit back to come and race here. Max had to do it, 4-time world champion, had to go through the whole classroom. How important is it to respect this place, to respect the marshals and the other drivers, we've just heard someone there has been thrown out in the middle of the race and had their permit pulled. So they'll have to go through that whole procedure again. That sounds harsh to some people, but it's not, is it, Max? It has to happen. People have to obey the rules here.
Yeah, because on any track, for sure you need to apply the rules. But here, you know, there are 160 cars. The track is a very specific track, and you can't just, you know, do what you want. And for sure, it's also, I mean, I don't want to call it dangerous place, but it's a more risky places than a lot of other tracks. And I think, like you say, you have to respect the place. You have to respect the track. You can't just come and do more or less whatever you want without, you know, learning the rules and having a bit more experience.
Yeah.
And it sounds harsh, but in this place, for sure, you want people to understand the game.
Yeah, absolutely right. Maxime, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Go well for the rest of the race. Be safe. Enjoy.
Thank you.
And
then,
when are you next back in?
No, later. Now it's Luca, then Maro, and then I go.
So you get a little bit of a downtime.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for spending some of that with me. It's really appreciated. Maxime Martin, Mercedes AMG, with the two cars from his garage in first and second position when they came into the pit lane. I just actually had lost the lead to the Porsche. But number three still, that was earlier on, actually, wasn't it? We decided that. And so those cars now having done their 6th pit stops. And if you are just joining us, nice leisurely pit stop, also it appears, for the number 99 BMW. And they're just waiting for their pit stop time. And another BMW going back into the fray, and what great timing, because the man at the head of BMW M Motorsport, Andreas Roos, is here. Roosy, you won in WEC, man, last weekend.
Yeah.
Have you recovered from the party? You, Vincent Voss, the WRT team? I bet that was a good Saturday night.
Yeah, thanks of all. First, hello to everyone having me here. Yes, we had a tiny bit of a party.
Tiny bit.
A tiny.
Well, I know you and Vincent don't like partying at all.
No.
Quiet lads.
So this is why we kept it calm and finished early, just with water. No, I have to say, it was an incredible weekend in WEC in Spa.
Yeah.
Just last weekend, we had our first victory in the WEC Championships in hypercar since returning, and then directly a 1-2. Couldn't have been better.
Well, and at that place, which is so synonymous with Vincent, lives around the corner, that's where WRT were pretty much formed, on a track where the very, very lovely Alex Zanardi had done great stuff in touring cars in the 24 just after he had died, and you had the Grazia Alex on there. Sometimes the racing gods just get it right, don't they?
Yeah, to be honest. For sure it was a sad moment when we heard about the pass away of Alex Zanardi. But he was a great sportsman, not only a motorsport sportsman, he was generally a great sportsman. He was amazing to get to know him and to work with him. And unfortunately, but I think we did in somehow the best from BMW, what we could do.
I think you honoured him nicely.
Exactly. So
absolutely.
Sorry for that and for his family, but So, but we tried everything.
And if I know anything about Alex, and I interviewed him a few times, he would have said, race on. You did, you won, you're doing it here. You've won the hearts of so many people with your M3 Touring 24, and it's running right in the top. It's running in the top 10. SPX is the class that it's in, but I know from talking to you, overall result is as important as winning SPX. A bit of a joke to start with, turned into reality, and a real racing car from BMW M.
That's true. That's true. We had, when we decided to go really ahead with this program and to make the touring, we said we don't want to just show up and have something like a show car. We said if we come here, then we want to compete, and we want to compete for an overall result.
Yeah.
And this we clearly said. And yeah, the idea came already in 2022 when the road car was basically was launched, and then we in the motorsport department, we were sitting there and thinking, actually it's a very nice car, and then we said maybe we should try to do something. And then the next step was doing some renderings. We saw the renderings, we thought, well, it looks amazing. And then at one stage we said, okay, let's try it. Let's do the first April Fool. We did it, and then the community was so positive about it, and we got so much positive feedback. And then we said, okay, now we are, I don't want to say a bit the shit, but because the community, we were in trouble, and so what do we do now? And we say, okay, man, we have to do it. We have to do it a real race car.
Yeah.
And then, our designers and the guys scratched their head and said how we do it. And we clearly said, the target has to be the car, the lap time target must be of a GT3 car.
Yeah.
And I have to say, we proved now, I think, that the car can do it, and super happy to see this.
John will back me up on this. I've always been a sucker for an estate car, particularly a German one. I just love them. I've been very lucky to drive on track a lot, the M3 Touring Comp road car, but on track. And people have said to me, when we had different ones out, oh, can we go in the M8? Can we do this? Whatever. You want to go in the M3 Touring, and the public just go, oh, but it's a station wagon, it's a touring, it's an estate car. And you're like, just trust me, sit in the passenger seat and you'll see what it can do. So to see this evolution into this car, to me, is just absolute manna from heaven. But from your point of view, I'm fascinated by when you start with an idea, a concept, what becomes, let's build it, an April Fool's joke. Let's say it was, joke, I use the term very loosely, but around that April Fool's. What do you have to do? What's the process of persuading management that actually it isn't a joke, we can build it, and we're going to make it competitive, because you wouldn't build it unless it was competitive. So how do you get management to what we call the bean counter to say, sign it off and let's go and build it?
Yeah, that was actually a funny story. As we said, we did the April Fool and then we were laughing. But the first thing is, the ingredients of the road car, like you say, they're already very, very good. So it's already a very strong car and which has a lot of potential. But when we discussed it and said, this guy's basically, we started a bit as an underground program to really see what we can do and if it's possible. And then I remember, then we started building the car, and then at one stage I asked my boss, Frank van Miel, the head of the MGMBH, if he wants to visit us in the workshop. And then there was the car there.
And so you were asking for forgiveness, not for permission at that point.
A bit. but
quite right.
But from the beginning, everybody who saw the car loved the car, and I still get goosebumps when I think about it. It was really amazing.
But you kept it secret as well, outside. So now you're telling us it was quite a secret inside the organisation. For me, it is so difficult nowadays to keep things quiet. And of all the things we thought you were going to announce at the time you were going to announce it with everything that BMW and M were doing, I don't think anybody had that car in reality on their bingo card. So how did you manage to do that? Because it was brilliant.
We know the motorsport world and the motorsport bubble is so small, and everybody knows everyone. And then normally it's very, very difficult to keep something secret. And somehow, I don't know how we managed to really keep it, because we were really a small group working on it, and but for sure you need some supplies. But it was also funny because we had it in our official test planning and in the calendar, and there was always written special project. And then one stage the drivers asked, hey, what's the special project? And we said, we can't tell you. And
so you didn't even tell the drivers?
No.
That was going to be my next question. How do the drivers receive it? Because you've got Neil Verhagen in it from your BMW Junior days, of course, the junior team. And by the way, you're going to potentially race an estate car. Do they? What's their initial reaction when you tell them?
When they saw the first pictures and everything, then at one stage of the car, and then they also loved it. And to be honest, when they jumped then the first time into the car and drove it, I mean, they came all out of the car with a big smile. And most of them say, when you jump in, it's like a GT3 car. But they love it because it's also such a unique program and such a unique project. And this is why everybody loves it.
Let's bring us back to here and now and this race. That car, as we said, is running solidly inside the top 10 as it has been all day. It's 5th at the moment. It's 40 seconds away from the lead after the 6th set of